The mic is on. That's good. Okay. Good to know. I'll be going live in just a second. I'm just trying to get all my screens set up. Well, I don't know how it's going to go. We're winging this. That's why I did not do any of the, I didn't make any announcements or anything like that. I'm still trying to work through how I'm going to try and do any of this. We're just going to wing it today. I thought what I would try and do is come up with a way that I could do like my typical microphone comparison videos, but try and do them in a live situation where we could go through and talk about a microphone together. And if there's microphones I have, because what I see in my comments on many of my videos is, could you compare this mic to that mic? And so what I thought it might be interesting to do, to see if there's a way that I could try and simulate those, the way I make the videos where I compare the microphones together, but do them sort of live in person, where if I'm looking at the chat, can you say, this sounds better, this sounds, could we do something? Could we try and test something? Could you put this microphone next to the other microphone? So this is kind of similar setup to what the last live stream was, where we had two microphones in the booth. And I think hopefully if I did any of this right, we'll hopefully be able to sort of go through and compare. I think I have a little bit of still set up to do. I figured since the mic was hot, I'd just come in and start talking and explain what I'm doing. I do have the ability, I think, to show chat. So hopefully if I do that, I can show chat questions. So if there are questions along the way, I can try and answer questions along the way. So let's talk about the setup that I have here. And you'll forgive me that I have my glasses on. Hopefully they're not too reflective in the screen. Just so I can try and make sense of what I have here, because I'm not particularly adept at the live streaming stuff yet. Okay, so what do we have here? I have two microphones in the booth, and one of them would be like the main microphone that we're testing. So in this case, this is the Stellar X3, and next to it, I think I have the Stellar X2. Yeah, this is the Stellar X2 next to it, not the X2 Vintage. And so I thought maybe what I could do is try and simulate the way that I've done this before. So if I turn the Stellar X3 on, now you're listening to, gosh, I hope we do this right, we're just listening to the Stellar X3. And then if I switch it, we have whatever mic I'm comparing it to. So whatever mic we decide to put into the interface, we could switch to the other microphone. And hopefully they're somewhat balanced. I have the preamps on the Audient set to be exactly the same, so there may be some slight differences in the way the microphones sound. If one's too loud or too quiet, we can adjust it. And then I thought, so I'm already getting feedback that one of these is much lower. So the X3 is louder than the X2. Is that what I'm hearing? So we could go through, and it's hard for me to hear. And then we also have the ability to maybe try them both side by side. So now if you're listening in stereo, you should be getting one in each microphone. So if you want, I'll step out of the booth and go look at the gain adjustment really quick, and we'll just see how the difference is. So I'm just going to keep it on one mic at a time so that we can test it. So I'm just going to step outside. I was going to do all this beforehand, but I'll just step outside and just adjust the gain knob real quick. 1 second. Yeah, I'm walking away from the stream. All right, so hopefully that's a better adjustment. So now if I put them both together, does it sound pretty even in my head? It sounds pretty even in my head. it's hard. I'm looking at the chat here. I'm not looking at the meters. So if I need to, I'll switch back to the meters and we'll test. So the way I thought maybe we could try and make this work is I could start to just talk into the microphone and just switch back and forth, and you guys can tell me if it sounds good, if it sounds bad, if you like it, if you have any questions about it. We can try and pull up the data sheet or something like that. And then I grabbed just a whole bunch of microphones to try and test between the two. So in here, I've got shotgun microphones, I've got condenser microphones, I've got expensive microphones, I've got cheap microphones. I got a whole bunch in here, and I figure we can just try and go back and forth and see. And then along the way, if there are questions that you have, either for me or about the microphones, I'll do my level best to answer them for you. And then after we go back and forth with the microphones, maybe we'll move one of them out of the way. And if we need to look at Reaper or answer any questions, I figured we'll just go for an hour or something like that. It shouldn't take us an hour to talk about the microphones. Sound fair enough? So let's begin. So I'm going to need to first switch a little bit of my screen here that you guys can't see. I'm going to pull the chat away from my view and just make sure that I have maybe a Reaper project or something pulled up so that we can look at the screen. So question, what app are you using to pop your chat questions on the screen? That's actually, it's a Chrome plugin from Aaron Parecki. I don't have a link, but if you search for Aaron Parecki live chat, he just finished a live chat. In fact, that was really a live stream. In fact, and it's really interesting. His streams are always super interesting. But he's got a link in his most recent video that says how I do the chat pop-ups, and it's a Chrome extension that you configure. And you pop out a YouTube window, and they all appear there. Okay, so let me just pull up a screen that I can safely show you. So hopefully, if I do this right, I can then switch over to the screen and turn the overlay off. So if we need to, we can go back to a project and, pull up a spectrogram or anything like that. Does that make sense? So hopefully that will make sense. And I'll have the chat down here. Just thinking this through. Will the King Bee be used to test? I didn't bring the King Bee into the booth. I can potentially bring the King Bee into the booth. I just have to go back out into my closet to test it. The reason I didn't bring the King Bee in is because the King Bee is ultra hard to come by now since they stopped making it. You can only find them secondhand, and I don't have a worker bee. I only have the King Bee, but the King Bee, it's hard to get now, so I didn't bring it. But if we need to towards the end, maybe I can go grab it just to do a comparison. Okay, let's see. So right now we have the Stellar on. Let's turn the chat window off, and we'll start with the Stellar. So the Stellar itself is an upgrade. Well, they're claiming to be an upgrade from the X2. So the X2 was the first microphone that I ever came by from TechZone. They sent it to me right in the very beginning, right when it was first coming out. And it was a surprisingly good microphone. I had one complaint about it, that it had sort of a high noise floor, but I compared it against some of my more expensive microphones, in particular the Neumann U87 microphone that I have that's really just a far too expensive microphone. And it compared really favorably, and I made a good recommendation, and I think they sold a lot of microphones. I really liked the microphone. This is they sent me another version of the X2. So the one I had a different case. Whether the guts were different, I don't know, but they sent me a different case to it. They sent me the one with the updated case. So that's the one we have here. I also have down here I also have a vintage, the X2 vintage we can have, but they are saying that this X3 is a successor to the X2 and thus is upgraded. It's got some more features to it. It's also significantly more expensive. If I'm not mistaken, the X2 I think is running $200 right now, and the X3 is like $369. That's a lot more expensive. They do have a somewhat different sound profile. The two microphones, the X3 is, I guess, a darker sounding microphone. It's got a little bit less of a high end to it. I can try and bring up, hold on for a second, let's see if I can do this here. I think I can bring up the TechZone website and share it. TechZone Audio Products. We'll bring the website up, and we'll just sort of look at the data sheet for the X3, and we'll see what we're looking at with the X3. Give me 1 second to pull it up. Yeah, let's bring this make it a little bigger. So if I switch over to the screen and turn the microphone selection off, and we'll listen to the X3 while we're doing it here. So when I first am looking at a microphone, I try and go and look at its frequency response just to try and get a sense of what this microphone might sound like. So I'm not sure how, I think this is just a general goal for what they're thinking about for the microphone. But we see that it's a relatively flat response rate. Response up until about 5K, then we have a gentle presence boost. And this is lower than you might typically expect for a presence boost on a microphone. A lot of times it can be 4 or 5 or 6 decibels. This is only a 2 decibel presence boost. That tends to run down pretty quickly. So it's just sort of in that upper mid-range of the voice. And so that, I think, would say that it's a slightly darker, warmer sound for the X3, meaning that, so if you have maybe a more sibilant voice, if you have a sharp S sound, so if you have an S that whistles, something like that, there's some people that their S sound whistles, and you might want to have maybe a somewhat less presence boosted microphone so that you don't get those frequencies boosted up, that you're going to have to equalize them out anyway. So the X3 does have a slightly lower presence boost. I think that's similar to what they were asserting for the X2 Vintage, that it's a warmer, darker microphone, not quite as presence boosted, trebly, sibilant. That's sort of like the opposite of, if you think about the Rode NT1-A. So maybe we can put an NT1-A as a comparison, because this is a very present microphone. I think it's actually, for my voice, it's too sharp. I don't like the way the S sound for me with the NT1-A. So maybe we can try and click that in here and do a comparison side by side. That's what I'm hoping that you guys can tell me if there's particular ones that we can try and listen to. So Antoine asks, that's a good question. So if I put the chat up, what interface and processors are you using? So these are both going into my Audient ID44 interface. No plugins, no effects, no nothing. These are just the raw input directly into my Audient ID44, which is in the other room. Danny asks, how do you keep cool in a VO booth without fan noise? I don't. I'm sweating already. It's hot. They get hot. There are probably, this is a homemade booth because it's what I could get to fit in the space. They're hard to keep cool without a fan. There are some more really expensive ones that you can get that have a really quiet fan with lots of baffling and stuff. My homemade one, I didn't do that. My way to do that is to just open the door from time to time and let the cold air in. That's how I do it. And with all the lights and the equipment, and right now I've got a computer and 2 screens and lights and a camera and a tablet and a gear. It actually makes a fair bit of heat in here, and the hot tea doesn't help. Okay. So the X3, the polar pattern. The other question that I typically look at when I'm looking at the graphs for the microphone. So if I go over to the screen, the other thing I look at here is the pattern of the microphone. And if you've never read these before, the way I typically look at it is you can see that the response rate, the frequency response, the way the microphone responds is different depending on where you're located around the microphone. So if we think about addressing the microphone from the front, as you move to the side, yes, the cardioid microphones are generally sensitive around the side and to the front. But as we look at the screen, as we look at the response graph, we actually see that as the frequency goes up, so like 16,000 hertz, it actually becomes much more of a super cardioid pattern microphone. Different pattern at the lower frequencies, and then different at each of the different frequency ranges. So that's actually interesting. So as you think about how you're going to be performing in front of the microphone, some are the exact same no matter how you move around it, and others, like the Stellar X3, as you move to the side, it becomes actually an even darker microphone because it's less sensitive to the treble as you move over to the side. And that's a really interesting thing about this graph here. So let me turn that screen off. As we move over to the side, we see that up at the very highest frequencies, it is very insensitive as you move to the side. I thought that was kind of cool. That's kind of cool to know and to understand about the microphones. Any questions about that? I know I kind of go through that kind of quickly, but those are the things that I look at first when I grab a microphone and I start to test it. I look at its polar pattern, how it is expected to behave as you move in front of it, and then how it actually behaves as you move around it. So let's see. Why don't I switch this microphone, the comparison microphone, and we'll listen to another one from, instead of the X2, we'll pick another microphone, and then we'll talk about some of the buttons and switches that are present on the X3. Let's see. Let's see. So I have, let's do a thing in the chat. How about that? We'll do, I have, do I have this in here? I have a Stellar X2 Vintage and the Rode NT1. So let's do the 1 for the X2 Vintage and type 2 in the chat for the NT1-A. Which one should I do next? 1 for the X2 Vintage, 2 for the NT1-A. Sounds like the NT1-A is what people want. Okay, that's kind of cool. That was kind of cool, wasn't it? Hey, I like that. All right, I'm going to take the pop filter away from the NT1-A. Okay, so hopefully we don't hear too many clicks and pops and so forth. We're just gonna do it live, as they say. It's going to turn into like an ASMR video. So I have my little quick release. And we'll put that in here. And I try and line them up. I don't know if you guys actually notice it, but I do try and line them up. If it won't do it live. Is that Andrew? That's right. We're doing it live. Okay, let's try and do this without knocking everything over. Okay, we're going to do that. Oh, how was that? Oh, now I can hear them both. Okay, so that's the X3, and hopefully we can hear the NT1-A. Yeah, the NT1-A. So these actually, I think should sound different. The NT1-A, and you guys can tell me if they're appreciably different in volume, but the NT1-A for me is a very bright, a very present microphone, almost to the point of being too much for the way it sounds for me. And the X3, I think, should sound a bit darker, should not sound quite so trebly or anything like that. Now, some people may prefer the way that the really present one, the way the really present microphone sounds, and some people may prefer the way the darker mic sounds. So it's really a choice that you try and think about how it's going to sound for your voice, what you think you might prefer. There's nothing really wrong with either of these microphones, at least to my ears. They both sound fine. It's just a question of whether or not you think it's going to sound good for you. I know it's hard to, people ask me all the time, how do you make a choice? And I try and listen to a bunch of reviews for microphones and listen to the way it sounds on various voices and see if I can find a voice that matches mine. But I think that if you have an S sound that has a whistle to it, sort of a really bright sound, I think that the S sound for me on the NT1-A doesn't sound particularly flattering, but it's something of a diminishing, it's not like a huge difference between the two. It really is. I saw somebody say it comes down to personal preference. And that is true. It really does come down to personal preference. Okay, so we'll just keep talking about the NT1-A. We'll do a comparison between the two. So the Stellar X3 actually has a couple of switches on it, which is a choice that the manufacturer decides to make. And you see it a lot on different microphones. It's got two switches, common switches. One is the bass roll-off switch, or what they might also call a high-pass filter. So let's start with the high-pass filter. What this is used for, there's a switch on the side that if you switch it on, it will take some of the bass away from your voice, which means that as you get closer to the microphone, it doesn't become bassier. Now, that's called if you're familiar, it's called the proximity effect. It's the tendency that as you get closer to, especially a directional microphone, the closer you get to the directional microphone, the bassier it will become. So if I turn it off as I get closer to it, you get bassier. Sometimes if you're working close to a microphone, you want that proximity effect. Other times, you don't, because the way your voice sounds gets different as you move closer and farther away. You may not want that. So you can turn the bass roll-off on and make it so that your voice is going to be a lot more consistent, just change in volume as you get closer. It's also helpful that if you have trucks that go by, if you've got a furnace or something, or the train like I have that goes by every so often, you can take some of that low frequency away. Proximity sounds good. I just saw that go by in the chat. Proximity sounds good. Yeah, sometimes the proximity does sound really good. So if you're really trying to work that microphone and get up nice and close to it, you can do that and leverage the proximity effect. The same thing with the NT1-A, but you see it does get, I hear it in my head, it gets a lot bassier as I get closer to it, which can change. So if I'm talking like this and then get like this, all of a sudden the way the equalization sounds is significantly different. So it could be something that you want, it could be something that you don't want. The Stellar has the switch that you can turn it off. Now you can fix some of that in equalization. You can change that with downstream effects. Not every microphone has it. I've got some really expensive microphones that don't have that switch, so you don't necessarily have to have it, but it's nice to have it on the mic. The other switch that's on the microphone is a pad. So if you engage the pad on the X3, that will take the sound way down. I think it subtracts out 10 decibels from the microphone's performance. So I could get louder to it. So you may have this be needed from time to time. Hopefully you guys can hear that. You may need that from time to time, or you can just turn it so that it's loud. And you see that there's a pretty significant volume change as you engage that switch. So if you need to mic something that's really loud, you're going to scream into it. The time I use that switch as a voice actor is if I got something where all of a sudden I'm talking like this, and then I really need to scream or shout or do something loud. I can just turn the switch on, take 10 dB away, and be less likely to clip the microphone. So that's why the switch is handy. Not all microphones have it. Doesn't need to have it. I can always go over to the gain knob, turn it down a little bit, and then turn it back. You can do it, but sometimes having it on there is really handy. And especially if you're a musician, you're trying to mic drums or mic a guitar cabinet or something like that, you might need that. You might need that pad. Sorry, I want to make sure I save my breath. Let's see. 10 dB is a standard pad, so a couple of comments going by. 10 dB is the standard pad. It is. Different mics have different things. I do see 10 dB a lot. I see 20 dB a lot. And you sometimes see both. I have my OC18 has 2 different pads. Sometimes they'll have switches where it's at different rates of padding, where it's a gentle roll-off or it's a more aggressive roll-off at the bottom. But yeah, 10 dB is pretty normal. Lenny asks, do you still use the DBX286 for my recordings? I do sometimes. I generally don't use it for a lot of my voiceover recordings because I don't need it. I've got other preamps. I don't use it. I use it when I need the effects, when I need to use it as a channel strip. So in this case, if I was going live and I didn't want to have those effects being processed by the computer, I would use the DBX286 for the limiter and so forth. So I didn't have to worry about having my computer configured to do those things. Like in OBS, I don't know. I would rather have that happen in hardware than have my computer doing that. The computer's already working hard enough to do the streaming. So I would use a DBX286 for something like that, or if I was going for a specific effect. But I don't use it for everything. No, I don't use it. The comparison mic needs like 4 to 5 decibels worth of gain, so the NT1-A needs to be louder. Is that what I'm hearing? I'll go turn it up. So this is number 3. I'll go turn it up. I'll be right back. It's hard to get that dialed in correctly because each microphone's a little different. Maybe I need to configure this in such a way that those knobs are in here so I don't have to go outside. Normally what I would do during a comparison microphone is I often set up like a speaker right in front of them, and I send a tone into both microphones and make it so that the meters read the same. But that would be incredibly annoying to try and do here, and you guys would be tortured, absolutely tortured by that. So hopefully the comparison microphone now, it sounds even in my headphones, but I'm not positive that I'm hearing exactly what you're hearing. But hopefully I got it closer. Made some educated guesses. So we'll just do one more. So this is the proximity effect on the Rode NT1-A, and this is the proximity effect on the Stellar X3. Hopefully you get a sense of how they sound different. Let's see. So they're not pad. These are just the bare way that it's working. And we'll just for the sake of comparison, just to trip everybody out, we'll listen to them both at the same time. So if you need to pan or do anything different like that. Now, why don't I switch over to, just for 1 second, let's do one quick comparison. Let me get this configured here just for 1 second. So this is number 3, and this is number 4. What I thought I would do, so this is the NT1-A. NT1-A. See, now to me that looks like the NT1-A is louder, but I could be wrong. This is the Stellar X3. What I can do is I thought maybe it would be interesting to look at the noise floor on these two, on the different microphones. The thing I've noticed about my particular X3, and I'm not sure if anybody else has noticed it, maybe Bandrew can say, because I think Bandrew has this microphone. I find that the noise floor on the X3 seems to be a little bit on the high side. And let's see if I can illustrate that. Let me see if I can illustrate that. So we'll put the spectrogram on the X3, and we'll put a spectrogram on the X4, or on the NT1-A. Okay, we'll do that. Okay, so give me 1 second to just get this configured, and we'll just try and get a sense of if there's a difference between the two noise floor wise. Yeah, it's not perfect, but I think this will work. So if I switch over to the screen, what we have here, if you've never seen this before, let me turn the list off. So both mics are hot right now as far as Reaper is concerned, and we can the way we read a spectrograph, and we can see actually the fan noise on here too. But the brighter the color, the louder the signal. So as it's quiet, you want it to be as close to black as you can get. So if I step away from the microphone and stop talking, we should see which one of these is darker. The X3 is at the top, the NT1-A is at the bottom. So a little bit of fan noise that you can hear from the computer that's running the chat, but we can see that the NT1-A just is generally quieter. Assuming that these are both at the same preamp level. But I have noticed that in my listening for the X3 that I can hear the background hiss in my headphones. Now, bad timing. I think the computer fan just came on for the chat computer. But I have heard that I can hear under general usage that the X3 does have a higher noise floor. It says that it's got like an 8 dB or lower self noise, but compared to my other microphones that have an 8 dB noise floor, it tends to be louder. Okay, so let's turn the chat off and we'll go back to the X3. Just looking down at the screen here to see if there's any questions that I missed as they go by. That's an interesting question. What fabric is your booth lined with? This is a photographic drop cloth from Neewer on Amazon. I got it so that it's no seams. This is all one big piece of fabric, and then I cut a little bit off that goes over here. It's the same thing I have in my other room. I just use a photographic backdrop. The insulation that's behind it is Owens Corning mineral. Okay, let's see. All right, so let's see. Next microphone. Maybe we should try to put another microphone in the booth and compare to the Stellar. So we have, how about a more expensive microphone? So I've got my E100. Rest in peace. They don't make this anymore, but I think you can still get them. So we have an E100, and I saw somebody ask for a Lewitt. All right, let's see. How about we do one for the E100, and we do two for the LCT 440. One for the E100, two for the Lewitt. Two. Sounds like we want to hear the Lewitt. Uh-oh. Somebody spamming it with the one. All right. We'll do the Lewitt 440 next. All right, let me switch back to the X3. The X3 is on. I don't know, is this cool? Is this a good idea? I can't tell if this is a good idea yet or not, but I do like talking about this stuff, and I thought it'd be a kind of a different way to test the way these microphones work, so that you guys can hear it and make sure that we cover everything that we want to have covered. Let's see, so we're going to take away the NT1-A. Take that away. And can I give a shout out to Bandrew Scott from Podcastage along the way? He turned me on to these during his gift giving guide from last year. the quick release microphone stands, adapters. Man, these have been such a lifesaver. Go over to Bandrew's channel, watch his December gift giving guide, and go click the affiliate link for him. He deserves the affiliate love on this on these quick release things for microphones. Man, makes it life so much easier. Really grateful. I can't believe I never thought of such a thing, to look for such a thing before. What a cool thing. All right. Apologies if you hear a click. Okay. Oh yeah. All right. So now we should hopefully hear the Lewitt. This is the LCT 440. This is a little bit less expensive than the X3. So the X3 I think is $369, and if I'm not mistaken, the 440 Pure, it's like $269. I think this is about $100 less. So let's just listen to them both at the same time. I'm looking at the meters in front of me. It looks like perhaps the Stellar is a little bit quieter than the Lewitt. I might need to turn the Lewitt down a little bit. The X3 maybe a little louder. I can't. It's hard. It's really hard for me to tell. The Blue Yeti. Somebody wanted to hear the X2 Vintage. We'll get there. We'll get it in there. It's brighter on the left microphone, so I'm not sure who's left. So the X3, and if we switch it to the Lewitt, they sound pretty reasonably matched. I think I might need to take the Lewitt down a little tiny bit. Maybe it needs to go down just a little tiny bit. So if I switch it back to the Stellar, and it seems pretty close. These are pretty closely matched. I don't really hear a significant difference in my headphones, but maybe you guys can tell me if I need to change anything about them. The Lewitt sounds good. Yeah. I'm listening on my laptop speakers. You can't tell. No, you really can't tell. You really can't tell. Okay, so I think that these are pretty closely matched. So the X3, I think, will have a different sound profile than the Lewitt. I think the Lewitt is also just going to be a generally more present microphone. It's going to be a little bit brighter sounding microphone than the two. But the thing I like about the Lewitt is, one, I really like the form factor of the Lewitts and the packaging. The Lewitt does come with a little pop filter. Ooh, sorry about that. Does come with a little magnetic pop filter that just goes right on. I love that feature. I think that's a super cool feature of the Lewitt design. They work really well. The shock mounts are both good. The X3 does have a much improved shock mount compared to its predecessors. Where did I put so the old X2s, they had this like really cheap, like squeezy ones. I'm not like a super fan of these squeezy shock mounts, but the X3 does come with a much more robust shock mount that actually you screw the microphone in. Looks more like the one. So for example, the shock mount for the X3 looks a lot more like the one that comes with my Neumann. Anyway, so this is my my U87. And it does screw onto the bottom. It's got a very similar type of configuration, as maybe that's what they were going for there. I don't know, but it is a much more robust shock mount for the new X3. Okay. How do you guys like the Lewitt? The Lewitt sounds pretty good too, doesn't it? All right, let's see. Compare the X3 to the U87. Yeah, we can put the U87 in there. But I was trying to start with microphones that were at least in a similar price point. I don't think people are necessarily shopping between, do I buy the X3 or the U87? If you're thinking about the U87, then you could almost hopefully be able to afford the X3 almost as an afterthought. let's see. So you have to give it to the Lewitt on this one. That's interesting. That's interesting. So we'll just go back to the Lewitt. I've been incredibly impressed with the Lewitt microphones. I have the they sent me a number of them, and I had the 550 that was discontinued, and then they sent me the 540, which is excellent. The 440, excellent. The 240 is good, a little noisy for my taste. They've got, for voiceover, the Lewitt microphones are great. All right. Okay, so that's the Lewitt 440. Okay, so how about we compare another microphone? We have, let's see, what should we do next? We could do the Stellar X2 Vintage. Did we do that one yet? We haven't done the X2 Vintage. Or, I have the Lewitt 540. I've got the CAD E100S. All right, how about we just, we'll save the U87 for later, I think. Sorry, that's loud. All right, so 1 for the E100S, 2 for the X2 Vintage. 1 for the E100S, 2 for the Vintage, the X2 Vintage. I wanted to hear the Vintage. I am the X2. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1. Oh boy. This is a pretty pretty even one. 1 for the E100. All right, I think the next one, it looks to me, as it goes by, it looks like the E100S. Let's do the E100S. All right, so this is going to take me a second to unbox this one. I think you can still get the E100Ss if there's still stock that's floating around. It was discontinued. I sent a DM to the folks over at CAD, and they didn't tell me anything specific other than I think they do expect a new generation of the E100 something to come out. They also sent me an E300 that we can check out to see if the E300 is worth it. Okay, so let's switch away from the Lewitt. Take this out. I don't have. Let's see. So I don't have the Octava. I don't have the Octava handy. Oh, it's going to be just a litter of microphones down here. All right, so let's put them both together, and hopefully we can hear. I don't know. Am I hearing the X3? Did I do something? Yeah, it looks like it's there. And we have the 300. All right, so now, do we have both microphones? I do think we have both. Let's see if we can tell if one's louder than the other. So that's the way the X3 sounds, and that's the way the E100S sounds. They sound like they're reasonably close in volume. I don't hear an appreciable difference between them. Let's see. As we switch back and forth, you guys can tell me if one sounds appreciably louder. As I look at the meters in front of me, it looks like they're peaking at about the same spot. So as I go back and forth, it doesn't sound appreciably different. The capsules are a little bit different in height. Let's just see if we can fix that. Yep. Now, there's a pretty significant price difference between these two microphones. The E100S, I think at last time I checked, was about $600-ish. This microphone's about $600-ish, so a little bit less than twice as expensive as the X3. There is a slight pattern difference between the two. So the E100S is a super cardioid microphone, much narrower lobe of sensitivity in the front, as opposed to the X3, which is cardioid, so it's a little bit wider from the front. My experience with the E100S is that it may sound a bit bassier than the X3. I feel like the E100S, I like it. I find it flattering for my voice. And one of the things I really like about it is the bass response of that microphone, especially as I get right up onto it. I think it's a good sounding microphone when I get right up close to it. Just a little bit different. It's subtle as we go between them. It's subtle, but I do like the you guys know I'm a fan of the E100S. The X3 is way louder. Is it? So if I go back and forth, you say the X3 is louder? The E100S sounds too bassy by comparison. Interesting. So, oh, sorry, I'm trying to. Okay, so let's just go. Let me just go back forward. So right now the E100S, as I look at the meters, it looks to be they're close to the same. So if I switch over to the X3. The X3 is louder, which I'm surprised by. Almost too bassy. And a flatter sound. Now that's not what I expected to hear, that the E100S has a flatter sound. A flatter sound than the stellar X3. You like the way the X3 sounds better? That's interesting. That's cool. That's cool. See, there's different mics for different people. X3 is more sensitive. Okay. Bunch of people saying they like the way the X3 sounds better. So that's really good. That's good to know. Turn down the X3, please. All right, and I'll go out and do that. 1 second. Ooh, it is hot in here. It is hot in the booth. It is hot in the booth today. Sorry if I just popped the microphone. It's hot in the booth today. So I turned it down a little bit. So let me just put them both. And so I'm looking at the meters. So I look at the meters on the screen. So they're going to be labeled incorrectly. But I try and watch the meters to see if they seem to be peaking at about the same place. Just in this kind of situation, I'm just trying to make a guess. So it looks to me that they're pretty close. I did turn down the X3 a bit more, so hopefully that's got it better. Ludwig, what camera am I using? This one happens to be the Sony ZV-1. It's okay. It's just okay. Don't love it. Don't love it. Might switch it because it overheats. Okay, so now I'm seeing in there that they do sound a little bit more in line. So if I go back to the X3. So again, the difference is the pattern with these. These both actually have the same switches on them. So they both have that bass roll-off switch. So I can engage the bass roll-off on the E100. And I can engage the bass roll-off on the X3. And that should take the bass away. So if the E100 sounded too bassy as I got close to it, let's see, if it sounded too bassy as I got close to it, turning on that roll-off filter can make a difference. And now here it is with the X3. This is with the high-pass filter. Bass roll-off, high-pass, engaged. E100 lacking something. Interesting. See, that's great. That's great. All right, so let's put those back. Let's put those back. That's why I think that's really interesting. So getting feedback that people like, several of you like the way the X3 sounds over the E100S. That's why I try and do these, and that's why I try and do these comparisons so that you can see how they perform in context with each other. That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Okay. Okay, so we've got another one. So why don't we do, how about we do this Stellar X2 Vintage next? How about we do the Stellar X2 Vintage next? So which one is this? This is a regular X2, right? That's the regular X2. Let me grab the Vintage. 1 second. There's just a morass of microphones at my feet. All right. So we'll do the X2 next. The X2 Vintage. Just as I got the E100S dialed in, we're going to switch it out again. All right, so this is now the Stellar X2 Vintage that's going in. And somebody's asking, can we do the OC18? Sure, we can talk about the Austrian Audio OC18. So 1 second, let me put the switch back to the X3 so I can take out this one. The E100S, yes, is a smaller capsule than the X3. Not sure. I actually don't honestly know what the significance is from a performance perspective when you're starting to get to these where it's, you know, three quarters of an inch and 7/8 of an inch. How much of a difference that makes? I've seen small diaphragm microphones sound great. I've seen large diaphragms sound great. I've seen them both sound bad, less good to my ears. All right, so let's see if we can get these lined up. Cool. Okay, so all right. So now we'll take a look at both. So this is the Stellar X2 Vintage and the Stellar X3 from TechZone. And those capsules seem to be pretty close. Just get them lined up here. I want to try and be as fair as I can to each one of the microphones, and try and get them lined up. Try and get them so that they're even. I don't want one to perform worse because it's not arranged correctly. So now we have the X3 and we have the X2 Vintage, and you can tell me if they're equal. I think it looks like the X2 might be a little quieter, but you guys can tell me. So what you hear, I'm just trying to go by what I see in the meters on the screen here. So, oh cool, he should also try that one. Virtually identical. They sound almost exactly the same. So that's actually an interesting observation. When I ordered the microphone from X3, when I ordered the X3, I sent an email over to the guys at TechZone, and they thought that they didn't think that the X2, they didn't send me one originally because they didn't think it would sound good for my voice because they thought it would be too dark. And they said the same thing about the X3, that they didn't think it would necessarily sound great for my voice because it's too dark. So it wouldn't surprise me if these have a much more similar sound profile. What separates them for like $120 other than the buttons and switches? I don't know. I don't know if there's a significant difference sound-wise between the two as I listen to it. In my head, they sound, I can't tell. Sometimes I can tell because I have one in each ear. I can tell if it's shifting, or I can make a judgment call. This sounds like one microphone to me. They sound totally different. So this one's the Friendcast says they sound totally different in his opinion. The X2 Vintage sounds like it has a high pass filter on it. I don't think it does. They could have a different response in the bass area, that's for sure. So we'll go back and we'll just compare between the two. So as I get closer to the X2 Vintage, that's the way it will sound from a proximity effect. And then if I switch over to the X3 and get up close to it, we'll see if there's a significant difference in the proximity effect. More bass. The X3 has more bass. That's good to know. It seems to be fuller. Well, it's a more expensive microphone, so hopefully that fullness is a sign of a good sound. But there's no high pass filters. There's no buttons or switches or anything on the X2, and there's no effects or anything applied down the rest of the chain. The only difference is I adjusted the gains a little bit. The X2 Vintage sounds better when you get close to it. So is it a microphone that really wants you to be up nice and close to it? That could be the case. That could be the case, where you want to get up nice and close to it and compare it to how it sounds to the X3. Maybe the proximity effect is a little bit more flattering on the X2 Vintage. That could be. That could be. Could I try the SM7B? I don't have it here. That would take me a minute to go and get, so maybe we'll save that towards the end. I could try the 7B. I do have one, but it may take me a minute to dig out from the other room. Okay, let's see. So somebody asked about the Austrian Audio OC18. That one we're definitely going to need to adjust the gain. So let me go back to we got the X3, so I'll take this one out, and we'll go to the OC18 next. One of my favorite microphones I've been using a lot recently is the OC18, but it's a $800 microphone. It's not cheap. Not cheap at all. So this is the OC18. Okay. Not quite level, are they? Okay, so we're getting close. We're getting close. Plug this in. Okay, my experience with the OC18 is that they're not even close. It's a much quieter microphone. So I'll probably need to go and add some volume to the OC18. You guys can confirm for me if I need to bring the OC18 up in gain. I'm guessing that I probably will need to. It's definitely quieter. It's my experience. So yes, sir. Okay, so I'm going to go bring the 18 up a little bit. All right. So am I getting a little closer as I go back and forth? That should be a little bit closer between the two. So we'll have the X2, and this is the comparison with the OC18. So if we go back and forth between them now, hopefully I've got the gain somewhat dialed in so that they sound reasonably close. You guys can tell me if we're close. Somebody just asked a question that went by, what headphones am I using? Unfortunately, these are no longer made. These are the Sennheiser HD380 Pros. They're my preferred ones in the booth because of the comfort, but unfortunately you can't get these anymore. The OC is still a little quieter, but it's close enough. Gosh, I hope it's really hard to get these dialed in because they are significantly different. Let me go add just a tiny bit more to the OC18. 1 second. All right, so I added a little bit more on the OC18, so hopefully, but now they don't sound the same in my headphones now at all. So, but it may be a little bit different what's going out down the line. To me, it sounds like it's a little bit. Did I get them? Did I do it back? Hopefully, I didn't do it backwards. Hopefully, I do have them so that we can go back and forth. Now, the OC18 is a little bit more of a premium microphone. They do have some of the same buttons and switches. This one does, the OC18 has multiple high-pass filters and multiple padding. So I think it's hard for me to see with these lights in my eyes, but I think it's like a -10 and a -20 pad switch. And it has an 80 and maybe a 160 hertz roll off. I literally can't see it because these lights are so bright in my eyes. I can't read the microphone. I can't go back and forth. I can't see it to know. But I've been really pleased with the OC18, especially with the highs. I think it's really smooth. I think it sounds very flattering for my voice. I've preferred it. I've recorded a bunch of stuff with it. The folks at Austrian Audio did send this to me, so full disclosure there. But I have ended up using it quite a bit. I did end up using it quite a bit. Let's see. Some people are talking about headphones. The HD300 Pros. I have the HD300 Pros. They do fit like the HD280 Pros. That's for sure. That's what a comment that I see going by for the headphones. The thing I like about the 380 Pros, and I've never found again, is the size of the cup. The size of the cups are huge. They don't touch my ear at all. So I'm working on an audiobook project. Oh, I'll show you. This is really. If you're wondering why Mike hasn't been making videos, look at this. You want to see why I haven't been making as many videos? This is my current audiobook project. I have to have all of this written. I have to have all of this read and produced by June. By mid-June. It's like 25 pounds of books. This is my current audiobook project. It's nonfiction. It's for a corporate client. And they're trying to turn all their internal stuff into audiobooks. And so, holy cow, I spend as much time as my voice will allow reading those books. It's 2,700 pages, 2-column, like technical manuals, and it's no joke. Microphones. Okay, let's see. My goodness. Yeah, no kidding. They are, luckily there's a lot of illustrations in them. So it makes it so it's a little bit easier, but it's pretty dense. I don't know if you can see it. It's pretty dense text. Sorry, I just dropped a piece of paper. It's pretty dense. They take a long time to read and to read correctly. And so that's sort of the project that I work on right now. It's occupying just a ton of my time. And so the videos, I'm sure the people who've sent me microphones that would like to see videos made, it's like, the paying customers, they gotta come first. And so that's the audiobook project I've been working on. And it's just like, my head's just exploding. Head is just exploding because that is a ton of work. It doesn't look like that much. It doesn't look like that much when you just look at the books, but man, it's just so slow. But I want to do a good job for the customer, so I really try and do them well. But it's a lot of work. Okay, let's see. So that's the OC18. Let's see, what else do we have? Did I have the Earthworks ICON Pro? The Earthworks ICON Pro? I think this is the Icon. Is it called the ICON Pro? Terrible. I should know. I have the Icon, the USB. This is the XLR version. So yeah, I have the Icon. That should sound totally different from this one. Okay, so that's this is the OC18. All right. So somebody has been asking for the TLM 102. I do not have a TLM 102. I have a TLM 103, and I have a U87. Those are the two microphones that I have handy. How many do I own? How many microphones do I own? I own 1/15 as many as Podcastage, if he's still here. I don't know. I have a bunch of microphones. Many of the ones that manufacturers have sent to me. I have a lot of microphones. But Bandrew's got way more than I do. Jealous. I'm jealous. All right, so let's put this one back. And how about next we'll do the TLM 103. How about that? I need a few more mics. I do. You got any? Got any you can send me? I'll take them. I was just bidding on one today. All right, so the TLM, I'm going to guess that these are not going to sound very similar at all, is my guess. Let's see if I can get these to a range. These are pretty different size microphones. Come on. These on-stage stands, they're cheap, but they're not that great. They're cheap, but they're not great. Okay, sorry if this clicks. All right, let that settle down for a second. Okay, so this is the TLM 103. I'm going to guess that the TLM 103 is way louder, is my guess right now, because it's still set for the OC18, so I'm probably going to need to turn this down. So what camera am I using? This is the Sony ZV-1, and it's got a special mode that's got a fast focus for when you put something in front. It's got this product showcase mode that if you put something right in front, it just snaps into focus for it. It's kind of cool. Okay, so yeah, lower the gain on the TLM. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so let's see. How do these sound now? Hopefully I got them a little bit closer. I'm trying to make them so that they're try and get them kind of close. So this is the X3 and this is the TLM 103. And if I listen to them both in my headphones, they sound reasonably well matched. You guys can tell me if they seem reasonably well matched. Now, there's a pretty significant price difference between these two microphones. The TLM 103, this is probably $1,100 or so, right now. They sometimes go on a little bit of a sale, but generally it's $1,000, $1,100 microphone. And it's pretty much what it is. And to go back, the X3 is $369. Now, interestingly, this Neumann has no pattern, no buttons or switches on it. It's just a cardioid pattern microphone. If you want to do anything to it, it has to happen downstream. Whereas, as we said before, the X3 does have those additional buttons and switches on it for the padding and for the high pass. So it's just a little bit different depending on what you're looking for in a microphone. This one, the TLM 103, is a fairly popular microphone for voice work. I think it's got a really good sound for a Neumann microphone. The thing I find with the TLM 103, and if there's anything that prevents me from using it, is it really does. It needs, and I'm sorry if I'm doing it now, it needs pop filtering like crazy. So you always have to have layers in front of it or really arrange it so that you're not going right into the microphone. The basket's super transparent. It is hyper sensitive. It's so easy to put plosives into it. It's one of the things when people ask me about microphones and when they're starting to ask about the higher end microphones, especially the Neumanns, is it could be my shock mount, but they are very sensitive to any sort of wind, shaking. It can hear, like when people are walking above me, it makes the microphone rumble. They are really extraordinarily sensitive microphones. So it takes some getting used to. They will reveal everything about your space. If there's anything that's not so great about your space, the Neumanns will reveal it. So you got to have the rest of your room set up. And that goes really for any condenser microphone, but I do find that the Neumanns, once you start to get up into these really hot, super sensitive microphones, that they can reveal when your room is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. Let's see. Hopefully that sounds. I wish you would test the SM7B. All right. Some people said that. I have to go fetch that. I didn't bring any dynamics into the room with me. I didn't expect to do a dynamic test, but I'll have to step away. It'll probably take me almost a minute to go get that microphone and bring it back. So we'll do the SM7B later, and we'll see. The 103 has a very sparkly sound to it. Yeah, this is a very present microphone. There's a lot of high-end boost on the TLM 103. I think that's why a lot of voice actors like it, because it does add a lot of sparkle and clarity while still being smooth. If you compare the presence on the 103 compared to something like the NT1-A, they're both very present microphones, but the NT1-A sounds like crackly, almost staticky to my ears, whereas the 103 is bright, but is still reasonably smooth. Yeah. Any suggestions for a more forgiving mic for a not totally optimal room. Well, the dynamic microphones can certainly help. I was just speaking to a microphone manufacturer. They reached out to me, and a microphone called Lawton Audio. I don't know if Andrew's done anything from the Lawton, Lauten Audio. They make a microphone called the 208. The 208. That they specifically say is made for less than ideal spaces. Specifically say that in their marketing material. Lawton Audio, that says that their microphone, the one that they have, and I think it's called the 208. See, look, I'm just barely touching the cable, and listen to that bass coming in. Holy cow, these microphones. So sensitive. Lauten. I type and the bass comes into it. They are really, really sensitive. Okay, so it is the LS208. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just pulling up their website and just see if I can find where they say. Yeah, look at this. So if I go to the screen. So this is the Lawton Audio. This is the LS208. And it says it can reject off-axis sounds like air conditioning, room echo. It works in poorly treated rooms. So we're gonna put that to the test, and we're gonna see if that's actually the case. So they're gonna send me one so that we can see if that's the case, and we'll try and do it in places where it's not less than ideal. We'll see how it performs in the booth, of course, but then we'll also take it into less than ideal circumstances, maybe a room with echo, and we'll see if it actually doesn't. Because if that's really the case, that's amazing for voice actors and for streamers and for podcasters. Having a microphone that is good at rejecting that doesn't require a preamp with 70 dB a gain, that could be a game changer. So that would be the LC208. It looks like I see here Andrew had the review a year ago. That's awesome. That's awesome. So if you want to go find out if that's the case, go check out Podcastage and see if Andrew has the review that you can go check out. That'd be great. Okay, so that's the TLM 103. So that's the TLM 103, and that's compared to the Stellar X3. Okay, so what other microphones do we have? Okay, so we could do, how about we do, I have not taken this out of its box yet. Do you want to try the ICON Pro? How about we try the ICON Pro? Cinco Mic D2, that's in the booth too. Somebody's asking for this one. The shotgun. You want to hear a shotgun? Yeah, okay, let's do that. Yes. Ooh. Lawton 208 is super sibilant. That's good to know. Well, don't color me. I don't want any spoilers. I want to hear it myself. Okay, so why don't we do the, I think this is in here. It is. Hey, Mike, which preamps do you own? Which are your favorite? Do you still use the Avalon? I do use the Avalon. I'm very precious about my Avalon preamp because when I had the gentleman at Avalon replace the vacuum tubes. I had one that went bad. They replaced the vacuum tubes, and they're like, yeah, you only get a certain amount of hours on the vacuum tubes. So ever since that, I've been like, well, I'm only going to use it for the most precious recordings. So I don't actually use the Avalon as much as I probably should, considering I've paid for it and I own it. I should probably just use it and just get it retubed. But I'm very precious about it. The thing about it is it's slightly less convenient to use than most of the other things because it's vacuum tubes. I have to know about a half an hour before I want to use it that I'm going to use it because it takes about a half an hour to warm up. If you're familiar with the old school televisions, that took a while to warm up, to come into their own and really be clear and everything. The Avalon is like that. And so you do have to turn it on, but I don't want to leave it on. Normally what I would do, like if I was not smart about things, is I would just leave it on all the time, but then you burn the tubes out, which I don't want to do. I don't want to burn the tubes out. Let's see. That's what I'm looking for. So I don't use the Avalon as much. I also, my primary choice is the Audient preamps. That's my primary choice because those are the ones I've used. I've been extremely happy with them. They're super reliable. They work great. They're really clear. You have plenty of gain. You can turn them all the way up. So the Audient preamps are the ones that pretty much, most of my videos you're hearing Audient preamps. I also have a vintage preamp from a company called CLM Dynamics. They went out of business a long time ago. Probably like 20 years ago. And I had a friend with a studio, and he used to when I would do radio and TV commercials, it was a studio I was in commonly, and he used to always put me on this CLM Dynamics preamplifier. And when I found one on eBay, I went and bought it. Don't use it that much, but it's like a little bit of a channel strip. It's got a really nice limiter to it. So if I have to do something where I'm going to be up and down and really loud, it's got a nice, really transparent limiter built into it. So I'll use that from time to time. Okay, so let's see. This is the Cinco Mic D2 shotgun microphone. I can imagine that these are going to sound probably pretty significantly different, and you can tell me if they're way different. Somebody going in I see down in the chat, do the Rode Procaster. I don't have one. They never sent me one, and I didn't have a need to buy it, so I haven't bought it. Let's see. I thought you use a DBS 286. Somebody asked about that. I do have one. It's not my primary preamp. I use it for certain occasions. It's not my primary. Okay, so that's the Cinco, and that's the Stellar. The Cinco, I forget what this is going for now, probably in the $200 to $250 range is my recollection of it. Let's see, so this is the Cinco Mic D2. Oh, yeah. Cheap. Let's see. Is that right? Let's see. So this says that this microphone, the Cinco Mic D2, says it's $249. So $249. So as we go back and forth between those. Now, a shotgun microphone, totally different, different pattern, but they also work really well for voiceover. So I often use, over here, you see my MKH 416 from Sennheiser. I use that one quite a bit for voiceover. And the Cinco Mic D2 is actually a pretty good backup for something like a 416. They don't sound identical, but they do have a very similar form factor. The thing I like about shotgun microphones is, one, if I'm reading copy, a lot of copy, like I'm recording these audiobooks with the shotgun microphone, because I have the book open in front of me and I want the microphone off to the side and out of my way. I don't want to think about the microphone at all. So the shotgun microphone works really well in that particular case. But the Stellar is, the Cinco Mic D2, not a bad microphone. Not a bad microphone. I've been very happy with it. And you can tell me if, hopefully, the sound is somewhat similar from a level, but they probably do sound somewhat different. That would be my guess. So we'll just go with these. The Cinco needs to be, the gain, okay, so the Cinco needs to be louder. Cinco needs to be louder. All right, I'll go do that real quick. Okay, so the Cinco sounds right. Hopefully I turned up the Cinco a little bit, so hopefully it's a little bit better. So now we'll go over here. When I listen to them both, they don't sound the same, but it sounds like it's centered in my head. So hopefully this is a little bit closer. We'll go back over to the Cinco, and we'll see if that sounds right. And we'll go back to the Stellar, and we'll see if that sounds right. So we can just hear that if there's a difference. So the shotgun microphone is good, especially if this is something that you're going to use on camera, like if you're going to use it also for filming video, and then you need to go back and do dialogue after the fact to use the same microphone. That's handy. So you might be doing what do you call it, ADR. You might be doing ADR with this kind of microphone. You might be doing audiobooks. They often have a flattering proximity effect, so sometimes you can get right up close to the shotgun microphones, and they can often sound good. Sorry, I think I'm sending some air into it. Apologies for that. But you can compare that to the Stellar's bass, and I think the large diaphragm condensers should sound a bit bassier, more flattering, I think, but you can often get a good sound out of the shotgun microphones if you get like really close to them. I get really close to my 416 all the time, and it sounds great. The Stellar has substantially more bass. Yeah, I think the large diaphragm condensers are going to sound better generally, but these the shotguns, because you're using them outside, they're really good at noise rejection. They're really good at off-axis rejection. They're really good at focusing right in on a voice. So, and they also can work really well in a less than perfect booth situation. So there's a little bit of a trade-off. So let's go back to the Stellar X3. A little bit of a trade-off between the two. Kind of cool. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to think of what other microphone I have in here. What haven't we done? So we haven't done the U87. I have a Deity S Mic 2S available. Oh, I was supposed to go get the 7B. I'll do that. The U87 next. The 416. 416. Yeah. Okay, so is it easier to control plosives? Is it easier to control plosives with the shotgun mic? I think it's generally easier to control plosives with the shotgun microphone. I do keep a pop filter on the end of my shotgun, but you can see how small it is. Very unobtrusive compared to some of the other bigger pop filters that can get in the way of your copy. For the Neumanns, I also do often use one of their clown noses. These are reasonably acoustically transparent. They will take a little tiny bit of high end away, but the Neumann ones, they are unfortunately very expensive. Robert, I don't have a TLM 102 to test, sorry. What is my audio chain? Right now, these are just microphone into the Audient ID44 preamp. That's how I do all the mic videos. I don't put any production. I don't do anything in between. No processing, no effects, no anything. Okay, so let's do. I'm gonna take this one. I'm gonna take the Cinco away. Oh boy, there's so many microphones in front of me. I'm gonna take that one away. How about we do? All right, let's just go for it. We'll do the U87 next. How about that? Big size difference between these microphones, that's for sure. The U87 is it's a big microphone. I need to adjust it. Okay. That's pretty close. All right, so I'm not sure how these are going to compare volume-wise. So I've got both of them. Let's take this away. So now we have the U87 and the Stellar X3. So this is the U87 and this is the Stellar X3. So do you think I need to cut the gain on the U87? The U87 is a pretty hot mic, so I'll probably need to take that down, considering I just boosted it with the Cinco. So you tell me if the U87 is too hot. I need to boost the U87. Interesting. I don't have the pad on, do I? No pad. Aha. Let's see if that makes a difference. So I had the low cut filter engaged. So let's see. Let's just go back. Before I go and adjust the gain, I did take away the low pass filter on the U87, which was engaged. But let's see. So that's better. The Stellar is just loud. So now this is pretty much perfect. So now they are even. So that's interesting. So they are both reasonably hot mics. Because the U87 is a pretty robust mic. Now this says the U87 sounds tinny compared to the Stellar. That's interesting. That's an interesting observation. So this is the U87, and this is the Stellar X3. The U87, interestingly, is a microphone that I paid a whole bunch of money for, of course, and was not given to me. I paid for it, but it's not my number one. It's not my number one. I thought it was going to be my number one. It's not the microphone I go to all the time because I don't know that it's my best sounding microphone. I think it's a very versatile microphone, but I don't think it's my number one microphone. It's not the one that gets the most use. It's a big microphone, gets in the way quite a bit. It can really get in the way of your copy. Like I can't see half the screen that's in front of me right now because the U87 is so big. And it's tall. You know, it's definitely the biggest microphone that's in here. Just make sure that it's angled towards me. Looks like it was just a little tiny bit off. It shouldn't make a big difference. But the U87, it's not, I think the describe that it's tinny. I don't know that I'd say tinny, but I do think it's a very neutral microphone compared to a lot of the other ones that we've listened to. I think it's a flatter microphone. I don't know if that's actually the way it's designed, but I do find that it can take, it takes well to processing, but on its own, I think it's a fairly neutral microphone. So, significant less bass. So I don't know that, just trying to go back and forth. So this is the Stellar X2's proximity effect, and this is the U87's proximity effect. And you can tell me if they're significantly different. But yeah, so that's both of them. So the object lesson here, and this is why I haven't spent a lot of time with the U87 on my channel, is for me, it's not like, I thought it was going to be my holy grail microphone. Turns out it wasn't my holy grail microphone. But so Art says he likes the way the U87 sounds, especially in the mid-range. I think it's a good microphone. I think it takes well to processing. It's just not the one I tend to reach to first. Interestingly. More similar with the close proximity effect. The other thing about the U87 is it's a multi-pattern microphone. It's got 3 different patterns, so it can also be an omnidirectional microphone. So if I switch it to something like, let's see, so that's, so I can switch it to an omnidirectional microphone, which means no matter where I am around it, it should still sound the same. I can spin the microphone around. Good for if you're miking up a room. But it also has a figure of 8 pattern. So, oh boy. Sorry, 2 clicks. So a figure 8 pattern. So that makes it sensitive to both the front and the back and invisible to the side. So as you move off to the side, you probably won't hear it at all. The U87 multi-pattern microphone. But generally speaking, I keep it on card here all the time. I almost never use it in anything but the main pattern. That's one of the nice things about the TLM 103. While the TLM 103 is not identical, it is just the one pattern. You don't need to pay for the extra patterns or whatever. But that's that. Just watching the chat go by. It's going a little fast for me, but to try and keep up with. But yeah, so that's the U87 and that's the Stellar X3. It's interesting, right? Interesting. Okay, somebody asked a number of times for the ICON Pro. Let's take that out of its box for the very first time, shall we? And I'll do the ICON Pro next. Yeah. I know these quick release things are pretty quick, but I still should get an even faster way to do that. I don't know if there is a faster way to switch between the microphones. Okay. Icon. Where did I put the ICON Pro? It's down under here. The thing about the ICON, I started to use, I got invited to Clubhouse. Anybody using Clubhouse? I got invited to Clubhouse, and I thought the ICON Pro USB would be kind of a good microphone for Clubhouse. I haven't decided where I stand on Clubhouse yet, but it was interesting. Is anybody using Clubhouse? Anybody using it for anything cool? we're just using it to get tracked. Man, Earthworks, they're making just such beautiful, beautiful microphones. I love the way these microphones look. Okay, so, but they do have this weird... The one thing about the Icon is it comes with this weird adapter. It's like almost like a tripod adapter. I'm not gonna... Can I use that? I guess I should use that. That'll go in here. I have a couple of Earthworks microphones, and the thing about the Earthworks microphones that, in my experience, is they are like clinical microphones. They almost are like measurement microphones. They tend to be very, very surgical, maybe is the word I'm looking for. But they are, they're almost like measurement microphones. I have the SR20 and the other one, the one that Curtis Judd really likes. The number is 319. Ooh, it's escaping me at the moment. All right, let's see how this goes. But these are, I do like them, and they're beautiful mics. Get in there. All right, you're hearing this for the very first time. I've never plugged this microphone in before. Okay, let's get this. Let's get these somewhat organized. So let's put it on. So this is the ICON Pro, and we'll see how it sounds by comparison. I'm almost positive that this is an end address. Almost positive it's an end address. Here, look. Let's do this. The reason I say that is the Icon. Talk about a small diaphragm condenser. I mean, small diaphragm. That looks like a measurement microphone. And all the Earthworks microphones that I have, that's what their capsules look like. They're not big. They're not big. You don't have to hear that. They're not great big condensers on them. So end address. We're going to go with an end address here. So this is the ICON Pro by comparison, and you guys can tell me if they're reasonably close. We'll put them both on at the same time, and you guys can tell me if they're reasonably close. I'll look at I'll pull the meters up, and I think it's hard for me to tell. You guys are better at telling me. So that's the Stellar X3, and that's the ICON Pro. The Icon needs some help. Icon might need a little bump. The X3 is quite louder, so maybe I need to add a little gain to the Icon. Let me just make it a fair shake, and I'll turn it up a little bit. Okay, so I added more gain to the ICON Pro and took a little tiny bit away from the Stellar X3, so hopefully this gets it a little bit closer so that they're a little bit more evenly matched. It sounds like it's in the center of my head right now because I have one in each ear, so it sounds like they're probably reasonably close. Now that's interesting. I'm just going to switch. Hold on one second. Okay, so the fans on the Mac are not spinning. There might be something happening here. So look at this. I don't know if the Icon needs some breaking in. But look at the noise floor. Look at how loud that is. I can hear it in my headphones. So that, in one, there's a noise right here that it's hearing. That this, what is that hearing? This here, I don't know what that is. But the noise floor is really high on the Icon. Like I can hear a hiss in my head. I'm going to give that microphone the benefit of the doubt because I've just plugged it in for the very first time, and sometimes the capacitors. I don't think it's necessarily fair to give this thing a review, but we'll see. We'll see if that cleans up. We'll let it go for a minute because sometimes that will come into play. Sorry, I'm just seeing if it charged. I'm reading the chat here, seeing if that changes at all. So the booth screen. So I do not know what this intermittent. I don't know what this is. I haven't seen that on any other microphone. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? So, I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. And I might have to reach out to the folks over at Earthworks and just make sure that I didn't get a defective one before I go into a review of it. Yeah, but I'll let it stay. One thing I found with some of my other microphones is if they haven't been used in a while, sometimes they take a minute to let all the capacitors come up. I wouldn't expect that on a brand new microphone, but sometimes if a microphone hasn't been turned on for like a couple of years, it's like they need to warm up. It's just something that I've experienced with other microphones. And then after like a half an hour of being on, then they work. But that intermittent sound that it's picking up. Let's see. Whoops. And starting soon. How do I make that end? What did I do? What button did I touch? Oh my goodness, I can't. Oh man. What did I touch? Camera? That's not. I don't know. I don't know what I touched. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Can you guys tell me if you can hear me? Okay. It looks like you can hear me. I'm using a tablet as like a Stream Deck kind of deal. And it's sort of new to me. And I have all these macros programmed into it, and I accidentally grazed the screen and I didn't know what I touched. Okay, so yeah, so just to put a button on it, the ICON Pro. So whoever's asking for the ICON Pro, now you know. Now you know. I don't know. I might have to reach out to the folks at Earthworks just to make sure, because I have not seen that on any of my other Earthworks microphones. Normally they are absolutely silent. So this is not what I expected. So that's it. What video switcher do I use? I'm using two of them. I have there's the A10 Mini ISO and A10 Mini Pro. They're daisy chained together because I needed more inputs because I also have cameras in the other room. So the A10 Mini switchers. Okay, hopefully not another E100S situation. Yeah, it could be. Don't know. Okay. This one, I don't normally do ads for myself, but yes, if you go to boothjunkie.com, do I do private consultation for a fee? Yes, I do. If you go over to boothjunkie.com, there'll be a link that says book Mike. You can book me in half-hour increments. You can go over and do that there. Okay, so that's the icon. All right, let's see. Do I have anything else? How about, since I've brought it on camera, how about we do the 416? How about we do the 416? How about we do the 416? And I think that'll be the last one. I don't know that we need to do any others. You guys can tell me. Oh, the 7B. I need to go out of the room to get the 7B. So whoever's looking for the 7B, we'll get there. We'll get there. Sorry, I forgot. All right. All right. So both microphones do. Okay. So I think I need to move this one back a little bit just so the capsules are even close to even. So this is the 416. This is the Sennheiser MKH 416 shotgun microphone. I'm just going to move it back just a little bit more so it's a little bit even. I don't want to block too many of the ports on the side. So this is the Stellar X3. And this is the MKH 416. You can tell me it looks like the 416 might be a little bit louder than the X3. Yeah, it looks like it is that way from the graphs. Let me go turn the 416 down. It's a hot mic. Hold on. Somebody was asking me before about cooling in the booth. It is 15 degrees colder just on the other side of that door. It's moist in here. Okay, so hopefully these two are a little bit closer in comparison volume now too. I tell you what, the 416 being a shotgun microphone, one of the first microphones I really invested in that I saved up for, and it has been just an absolute rock solid performer. Even if you are into large diaphragm condensers, having a 416, if you're into voiceover, I think a 416 will always serve you well. So somebody said there's no contest whatsoever. Is there? I missed which was the choice. I personally love the sound of my 416, but you guys can tell me if you like the Stellar X3. Big price difference between these, right? The X3 is $369 and the 416 is $1,000. So this is the proximity effect on the 416, getting right up close to it. I'm about maybe an inch off the diaphragm. And now if I get up to the Stellar X3 and I get about an inch off the diaphragm, you can tell me how the two sound. So anyway, that's the comparison between these two. So that would be that's the comparison there between these two microphones. So the 416, again, I love it, but it's an expensive microphone. Jeff Parker says the 416 off-axis color is dreadful, though. Being with the pattern, I would expect that that's probably the case. You do really, I have to be locked in front of the 416. So I do it a lot for audiobooks where I just point it at me and where my head is kind of locked in place. If I'm doing this in front of the 416, it's not going to be the right mic. If the more I have to move, if I have to emote or move around the microphone, that's not where the 416 shines. It's either where I'm just like this on the microphone and I'm just doing exactly what I need to do and I'm reading a script, or if I'm just going to be locked in like my audiobook project, I use the shotgun mic for that. So yeah, I can see that the off-axis color would be dreadful as you move off to the side. Even if you just move off a little bit, you're trying to mic two people at once, 416, not great for that. Not great for that. Let's see. Do I still love my CAD? Yes, I do. Have I ever used the NTG3? No. I have never used the NTG3. Do I have an NT1 to compare? Oops, sorry, I bumped it. Yeah, yes. There's a regular old AT. I have a regular NT1 down here. Do you want to do that next? NT1 comparison next. Okay. Alcohol and hot booth. Okay, so let's take the 416 out. Trying to make this a little bit more time friendly. So that we'll go back to the X3 and we'll take this out. And the NT1-A will take me just a second to come to. Let me put that back. Put that back. All right, so I think from a time perspective, we'll just do these last two. So I have an NT1, and then I'll step away from the booth, and I'll grab the 7B. So this will take me just a second to unbox the NT1's boxing. This is the kit. It's just crazy. There's so much. I mean, it's convenient, but it's too big. It's too big in my storage area. I do keep everything in the boxes. I do use the NT1 actually. Compared to the NT1-A, I like the NT1 way, way, way better. Boxes, Bandrew. I see somebody saying that. All right, so this one, then you have to take the bottom off the microphone. And throw that big box. All right, so then you put this on here. This is not, I will say, I don't love this system. Although the pop filter that it comes with, if I had to choose between the Lewitts and the Rhodes, the NT1 sounds good, but it's really big. It's a big microphone, and it can, the pop filter is really big. The NT2-A, the NT2-A is better. I've never used the NT2-A. I'm actually very curious about that. I've never used an NT2-A. Okay, so put the NT1. Now this is the NT1. This is not the NT1-A. And for many people, the two, there's sort of a night and day difference between the two. And I certainly prefer the NT1's sound over the NT1-A. And to my recollection, I don't have the price handy in front of me, but the NT1 is significantly more expensive than the NT1-A. It's, I think these are actually pretty close in price though. So if I switch over to this is the NT1, and we'll switch over to the X3, and we'll see if the levels are reasonably close to the same. So we'll just switch back and forth, and you guys can tell me if the volume is pretty close to the same. 349 for the NT1-A. Did somebody look that up? Yeah. Okay. So the NT1-A. So really close in price, because if it's 349, the X3 being 369, that's kind of cool. The NT1 needs gain. Do I need to bring up the NT1's gain a little bit? So we'll just keep vamping here for a second. Let the stream catch up, and we'll see if people say they sound different. Daniel, is that right? It says the X3 is 349, not 369. That's great. If I've been saying it wrong, thank you for correcting me. I appreciate it. So this is the 2. So the NT1 of the Rode microphones that I've tested, I really like the NT1. I think it sounds nice and smooth. The NT1 could use a little bit of gain. All right, so let me go turn it up a little tiny bit. All right. Hopefully I got it close. Hopefully it's close enough. But you can see, I don't think I did this for the last ones, but you can see, like, the NT1, one of the things I really like about it is a quiet mic. Look at that noise floor. That NT1, it's so quiet. They really did a great job with the noise floor in that microphone. It is so quiet. So quiet. Supposedly the quietest mic on the market. You know, there's a bunch of people that claim that. So I also have the LCT 540, which claims to be the noise floor is as low as possible according to the laws of physics. Who knows? It's quiet, though. It's super quiet. So that is the NT1 comparison to the X3. I'm curious to know if the NT1, how it sounds in the highs for you guys. I haven't put these two together before. You guys are hearing it at the exact same time as me, but I'm hearing both in my head. Kind of hard for me to judge which one sounds better, so I'm curious to know what you think of the NT1 compared to the Stellar X3. Especially I'm curious about the highs of the two. The NT1 sounds ridiculously smooth. The NT1 sounds better. The NT1 is getting the good marks compared to the X3. I do, it could be that, brighter sounds better. Could be. Sounds the same. X3 lacks highs. X3 lacks highs. I think that's by design. So, it scrolled off. X3 lacks highs. Well, I lost it. It scrolled off. I was going to try and put that chart up there. So when we first talked, we talked about the frequency response of the X3, and it does not have really a significant presence boost compared to some of the other microphones. So the NT1 is much more presence boosted, whereas the X3 doesn't quite have that. So if your voice already is pretty bright or has a lot of sibilance in it, the X3 might be more flattering for it, as opposed to something that's going to amplify that. If you have a whistling or a really sharp S sound, the NT1 may not be as flattering as something like the X3. So it's really a design decision that they wanted to make a darker sounding microphone with the X3. So there you go. Okay, so I'm going to step away. It's going to take me hopefully like 90 seconds or something. I'm going to step away because somebody was asking for the SM7B. We'll throw a dynamic in here, and we'll go there. We'll go from there. But it'll take me just a few seconds, so talk amongst yourselves. There is just a mountain of boxes around. It's going to take me an hour to clean this up. Okay. SM7B. All right, so let me take out the NT1. Okay, put that one down there amongst the pile. Okay, so this 7B, different style microphone altogether. This is a dynamic microphone. So my guess is when I plug this in, now I still have phantom power turned on. One thing I've learned about the SM7B, doesn't care if there's phantom power applied, doesn't make any difference. But I'll plug this in and hope for the best. But it looks like it's way, way quieter. Way quieter is my guess. So I have them both on, but if I look at the screen, you can tell that the 7B is just super quiet. So I'm going to go mess with the gain. Give me 1 second. All right, so turn the 7B up. Added some noise, but let's see. So now I have them both here. It looks like, did I make the? Okay, so the 7B is up almost. I might still need to take a little bit out of the X3. So if I go back and forth between them, I think I'm still going to need to take a little bit out of the X3. And so it still needs more gain. So I'm going to take some out of the X3. 1 second. Okay, so how do I have this configured? Yeah, let's put that. Somebody said take the presence boost off the 7B. I don't think I have a paper clip. I have to maybe get a paper clip to reach in there. Let's see if can I do this. Yeah, so let's start from a neutral perspective on the 7B. Hopefully these are pretty close to the same now. So if I go back and forth between the Stellar and the 7B, we'll get a comparison between the two. I'm not sure that these are going to sound the same at all. The 7B, so this is so somebody was asking me before about the DBX286. This is a time when I would probably use a DBX286 because the Audient has like 65 dB a gain. It's a little bit short. So the gain on the preamp for the 7B, I turn it all the way up and back it off a hair. There's no real appreciable noise in the Audient preamps. You can turn them all the way up to no effect, but I do find that it's best to just back it off just literally a hair, and then that will usually make it sound as good as that preamp can sound. So there is the 7B, but you can get right up on that 7B, and that's how a lot of people use it, is they want to get right up on that 7B. I probably actually should have it a little bit higher. The capsule's a little bit on the low side. Let's make it more like that. So now the capsules are the same, and even though the 7B is a lot closer to me, the capsule's actually fairly close to in line between these two. So we'll switch back and forth between those. So curious to hear your thoughts on them. So I can also put that presence boost back on, or the bass reduction on the 7B. So these on the 7B, the switches are in the back. There's two switches. One, you can add some presence to it, add some high-end clarity presence to the microphone, and there's a bass roll-off switch. You can take away some of the bass. So there's a little bit of a customizable sound with the 7B by switching those switches. But this just keeps it neutral, just so that they're sort of on par with each other. But that is, so right now I'm like one knuckles width off the 7B. And that's, I don't know, what I don't know from a point of comparison is if this foam here is affecting the sound of the X3. I don't know. So if I move the 7B in and out, does it change the way the Stellar sounds? So it's hard for me to hear because I hear them both, but I'm not sure how much this foam is affecting the X3. And these are also, I think these are pretty close in price. I think what is the 7B right now? $399? $399, I think, for the 7B. So the 7B is a little bit more expensive than the X3, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, so this is what the SM7B sounds like compared to the X3. So have I tested enough microphones? I don't even know how long we've been going here. Have I tested enough microphones? Hopefully. I'd be curious to know if your impressions of the X3, if this is well, I have two questions. One, was this good? Was this helpful? Is this better than like doing the little, doing like a 15-minute version or a 5-minute version of it? I want to make sure that these videos are super helpful. I'm not sure anybody's ever going to watch this back and watch the whole thing, but we try and get the whole. I want to make sure that you guys are happy with how this goes. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's all the microphones that I have. So let's just switch back over to the X3. And before we call it quits, I'm happy to ask or answer any questions that might be here. I've got a copy of Reaper open. If there's any questions that you have for me before we call it quits, I'm happy to answer any of them. In your opinion, is it worth paying the extra €150 for the shock mount for the TLM 103? I don't know, because I've only ever used the Neumann shock mounts. It's a funny size microphone, so you have to make sure that if you're going to buy a different shock mount, that it's still going to fit and not be in the way. So everything Neumann, there's a tax on it. Like I said, the clown nose from Neumann is $50. So the €150 for the shock mount, it could be justified. I've never tried to use anything other. If there was another one that I would suggest, it would probably be the InVision from Rycote, the InVision mount, because that will just screw on and it's adjustable, so you could get it to fit in there, right? But that's still probably it's $70 US, so that's probably what, $90, 90 euros is my guess. So. Do I think the X3 is better than the X2? I don't know that it's $120 more. I don't know. I think that they do have a different sound profile. I would probably be inclined, because the noise floor on my X3 is a little bit higher than I expected it to be, I might still suggest the X2. Could you show your de-esser settings in Reaper? I noticed that you used the JS de-esser. Yeah, sure. So if I go into the de-esser, so let me take this away and I'll put this on here. My de-esser, so let's do this. I'm going to record a little bit and we'll do the de-esser. Okay, so if I go back here, this is going to just take a second for this to come up because I just accidentally closed Chrome. 1 second. There it is. So if I go to the screen now, so the de-esser. So the de-esser is essentially one. Okay, so the de-esser is essentially a compressor that looks at a specific frequency. So in this case, I have the de-esser right now, and it's targeted at a frequency of 4,000 hertz, and it's looking at a bandwidth of 1.5 octaves. So there is an amount of space on either side, a frequency range on either side of the target frequency, in this case of 4,000 hertz, 3/4 of an octave on either side, that it's going to look at and reduce those frequencies. And it's for frequencies over a certain level. So essentially, mine's set at minus 58, minus 57. So that's essentially any time that something appears in that frequency, it's going to reduce that frequency. Now, how do you know if 4,000 hertz is the right frequency? One of the things that you can do is you can use that spectrogram. You can use a spectrogram and try and get a sense by looking at you can look at where your S sound might appear. So as I zoom in on the spectrogram, I can look and see roughly where the S sound is. So I'm guessing that these are my S sound on, let me turn that off. I can see roughly where I think my S sound is. So what I would do is add a spectral edit just to try and figure out what frequency that S sound is. So let me just get that to come up here. Come on. Put that up here. And we can see, I don't know if, let's see, if I do, can I do this? Can I zoom in here? Yes, let's zoom in here. So as I'm looking now at the S sound, I can see that as I move this box around, I'm trying to center it on where the S sound is. And I can see that my S sound is in the range. That's a 1,500 hertz range, so between 4,300 hertz and 5,800 hertz. That's sort of where that S sound is centered. And over here, it's between 3,700 and 5,200 hertz. That's where these S sounds are. So when I come back and look at the de-esser, I can adjust this frequency to try and center on where that S sound is and decide how much to take out by the ratio. So I will compress those. So every decibel of S sound that there is, I'm going to reduce it by 3/4. I'm only going to let it raise up by 1/4. So there's a 4-to-1 ratio is how I have that compressor set. So hopefully that makes sense. So the way you do it is you find where your S frequency is, and I'm making a guess that that's where that one is. And so I would say probably in the center, let's say that center's on 4,100 hertz, and there's a little bit of some leeway on either side, about 3/4 of an octave. And anytime you hear something present in that area, I want you to compress it by a 4:1 ratio. And that's how I have it set up. It's going to be a little bit different for everybody. Some people have really sharp S sounds, and they might be a different frequency. Sometimes if you get like an S that whistles, it might be at like 8,000 hertz or something like that, and you can de-S that. But essentially the compressor just looks in that one particular frequency, and will compress it down. And so that's the way I set up my de-esser. And once you have that set, you can then turn it into a preset and say, this is my S sound, and that's the way I want it to sound. A combination of your microphone and all that stuff. That's how that would work. So hopefully that helps. How often do I upgrade Reaper? It seems like every time I open it, there's a new version. Yeah, they do a fair number of incremental versions. I do it like every 4th or 5th, and I just click through the nag screen when I go through it. It's nice that they're very attentive, and they do fix a lot of bugs, and they're often just they're minor bugs. You can always watch the Reaper blog, John Tidy over on the Reaper blog, if you want to see what happens with each one of those. He often makes a video for at least the major increments, but I only do it occasionally. I don't do every single one. Do I have a USB mic video? I don't really have a USB mic video. I had one, I did a bunch of USB mics a couple of years ago, but I usually say no to the USB mics because they don't really apply much for voiceover. I did get the ICON Pro in the USB version. So I'm going to take a look at that one, but generally I don't have many USB microphones. I should probably do more with them, but I don't. I think Bandrew does over on Podcasters. I think he does some USB microphones. You can always look there. My favorite brand of XLR cable. I don't know that I have a specific brand, a preferred brand of cable. Let's see. Does this cable have a brand? The cables that I have were made for me. I'm looking to see if I have a brand on here. I always use Neutronic connectors. This is Canare, Canare. I know I've seen that name before, but I've never pronounced it. Canare. Cable, is that right? Yeah, so this brand of cable, let me just switch over to the screen there. So this brand is the brand of cable that I use. Almost all my cables, practically every cable that I use that you ever see was made for me by, I hired Alan Williams over from the Sound Speeds channel. He made a dozen cables for me a long time ago, and they have been extraordinarily reliable and robust and amazing, but they use Neutronic connectors and this Canare, Canare, C-A-N-A-R-E cable. I've never heard the name pronounced, so I don't know. What is my favorite light set of cans to wear for a long time? The Shure 215s. 215. They're in-ear monitors. The Shure 215s. If I need something that's lightweight, that isn't in the booth, so I wear these very frequently. I find these to be, and I have the wired version, not the Bluetooth version. I use the wired version. I wear these a lot, and I can wear these earbuds for hours and hours and hours without my ears getting tired. They fit. And the other thing that's been really amazing is the cables last literally forever. The connector, it rotates on the connector. I can go get them for you. They rotate on the connector. Here, I'll get them. 1 second. I'll be right back. So this is the reason I went to get them is because I think this is very telling. So way back when my channel first started, I made some videos about being in a car and using your car as a booth, and I was wearing these exact headphones. the Shure E215s, these exact ones, and they have lasted and lasted and lasted. The durability on these is unbelievable. And they, can you see that? If they just rotate on their cable, and the cable just goes over your ear. So I have worn these literally for years, and they still work. They still work great. So the durability is unbeat. Sound quality, they're not they're not going to be like your highest fidelity things, but for $100, these have blown everything else away, just from a reliability standpoint. Price to reliability, these have been great. They're really comfortable to wear, and I just do them all the time. These are my next favorite cans. I bought 2 pairs of these. These are the HD 380 Pros. I've literally still searched. I still would like to buy another pair because these have been incredibly comfortable. And I also like the Biodynamics, the DT, the ones I wear out in the other booth at my desk. I wear the DT 990s and the DT 770s. Also fit my head, but I wouldn't classify them as particularly lightweight. But the DT 770s, the Biodynamic, the round ones, they all work really well for me. Let's see. Oh my goodness. I realized I haven't said thank you to anybody in the super chat. I see that there's a super chat that went by. Oh my gosh, I feel so bad because they've gone by. But Sean, thank you so much. Sean from Global Voice Acting Academy. If you want to go get lessons on voice acting, go over to the Global Voice Acting Academy. Talk to Sean. They have great lessons over there. I had the privilege of doing a sort of a master class for them once on Reaper, and their classes are great. And also their rate sheet. If you ever need a reference for what to charge for voice acting, go over to the Global Voice Acting Academy and look at their rate sheet because it's got good rates, good starting point for what you should consider charging for various things for the work that you do. So thank you very much, Sean. Incredibly generous. Thank you. So of all the mics you tested today, do you find the SM7B is the best choice for high pitch, more aggressive vocals? That's hard for me to say, Nelson, because I don't use it for singing. So it would be really hard for me to say. I think for me, I personally prefer the sound of the Electro Voice RE20 over the 7B myself, for me. So that might be a microphone that I would perhaps also give some consideration to, just because I like the way that sounds better for me, and it can handle it. XLR cables don't matter much sound difference wise. I think that's actually largely true. I think it's as much a durability thing as anything. I've used the cheap mono price ones. I've used the cheap ones, like the ultra cheap cables. If you can't afford a Neutrik connector on a Canary cable, God, I should figure out how to say that, or a Mogami cable, you don't have to spend it on that. You're going to pay for durability. You're going to pay for longevity. You're going to pay for the ability to just wrap them up and just keep using them. The other ones, the cheap ones, the connectors fail. Although I will say that the cables that I've gotten from Monoprice, their connectors are generally pretty good. Are you doing live post-processing? If so, how? No, there's no post-processing here. You're just getting the mic. Cinco D2 or Stellar X2? Which should I get? Okay, so which should you get? I can't say exactly, but I'll tell you what I would have for a consideration is, what do you intend to use these microphones for? And if it's going to be on camera, do you want the microphone to be in camera? So if you don't want the microphone to be in camera, then I would definitely say something like the Cinco D2, because it's a shotgun microphone, so you can put it so it will be just out of frame. So at my desk, when I'm on Zoom calls and consulting calls and so forth, I use a shotgun microphone that sits literally just out of frame. Sounds great. It's like 1.5 hang looses away from my face, but it's out of frame. So it gives me my whole desk. If you're going to be doing mostly like radio and TV advertisements where you need to work that microphone, then something like the X2 might be a good choice. Ideally, you might have both. I generally have both in my booth, I keep a shotgun and I keep a large diaphragm condenser microphone, but it really boils down to what you're going to use it for. If you're going to be using it just for something like streaming, if your space is less than ideal, if you don't have a booth with room treatment, then something like a shotgun may actually serve you better in the interim. Might be worth to spend the money on the shotgun microphone and then work on your space as needed. If you already have a really good space, then something like the large diaphragm condenser may sound better. I think we heard that it sounds a little bit fuller. I think the X3 compared to the Cinco, but the large diaphragm condensers, they can have a more robust sound, but they're less forgiving of the space, and they want to be closer to you, whereas the shotgun can be a little bit farther away. So I hope that helps make the choice. Can I compare the HD 280 Pros to the HD 380 Pros? I could. The HD 380 Pros, you'll be hard-pressed to find them. If you can find them anywhere, you're going to find them used. The HD 280 Pros, compared to the HD 300 Protects or the HD 300 Pros, they're very similar. Given the choice, I would probably choose the HD 300 Pros, and I use the HD 300 Protects when I've used them, and I bought those myself. And that's the reason I did that, is because what has happened to me a couple of times is I've been putting on my headphones, and if the mic is hot and my headphones are up, you might get a blast of feedback that happens, and it can be extraordinarily loud in your headphones. And the HD 300 Protects will turn that down. They've got a built-in limiter for it, which is super cool. But the thing about both of them is the cup sizes are a little bit smaller. The HD 280s, they super clamp onto your head. The HD 300s, they fit a little bit better, but they're very similar. I've been trying to cogitate on how I can do headphone reviews in a way that lets the headphones speak for themselves rather than me giving the impressions. So hopefully I'll be able to do that for you. But if it was me and my money, I'd get the HD 300 Protects if I could afford them. The HD 300 Pros before the HD 280s, but it's go with either one of them are great. Go with what you can afford. The most important thing with your XLR is that it fits your mic well and it's snug. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm just trying to go through. I've got the screen down here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to the big screen so I can see them a little bit better, so I can read the comments a little bit better. It's really tiny. It's on a little tiny laptop screen down here, and it's super tiny. Okay, so now, would I recommend the Audient Evo devices for serious VO work, or is the ID range a better buy in this regard? So the devices that are at the similar price point, flip a coin. Look at the form factor and see which one you like. It's my understanding that the preamps inside are almost identical. I personally would probably go with the ID series. Feels a little bit more robustly made. I like having individual knobs for certain features. So I use the ID line. And then if you're going up, the ID22, the ID44, which give you a little bit more functionality, the ability to add external hardware in place. So the ID22 is like a really, really good device, especially if you think you might add another preamp down the road for other purposes, whether it's a 286 or anything else, because it's got sends and returns in them, multiple monitors and so forth. So I like the ID series, but at the given price point, look at which one you like better and go with it, because from my experience, the sound quality that you get out of either one of them is excellent. I think the ID series is just a little bit better made quality-wise, so it might end up being a little bit more durable in the long run. Which mic has the best low-end response, in my opinion? Probably the TLM 103 of the mics that I have. It's either the TLM 103 or the CAD E100S. I like the way the bass sounds for me on those, the bassy parts of my voice. Whether or not that's the best for everybody, I don't know, but that's the ones that, of the mics that I have, those are probably the ones that I like the way they sound the best. Gee. the Blue Yeti versus the AT2020, I would definitely go with the AT2020 before Blue Yeti myself. Oh, Miguel, that's super awesome. Not a question, but you're my biggest inspiration. Man, that is incredibly flattering to hear. Thank you so much. Better than the AT4040. Jared, I'm sorry, I don't know what that's what that's asking about of the AT mics. I don't have a ton of experience with the AT4040, so I can't say. But I would choose, if it's with respect to the AT2020 versus a 4040, I would go, the AT2020 for me has got a lot of underlying noise that's present that I'm not a fan of. I have an AT2020 that almost never gets plugged in. Are there any monitor quality cans are there that aren't folding? Do the biodynamics fold? I think they all, don't they pretty much all have a hinge? I don't know. I can't think if that's not a thing I've tried to consider on a limiting factor, so I don't know. When setting up a voiceover space, would a small, heavily treated space like a non-walk-in closet sound better, or a mildly treated room such as a bedroom? Mildly treated room like a bedroom. That's a rough one, because a mildly treated room I think is going to be really reverby. Oh, that's good. Sorry, Edwin. The 770s, they don't fold, then go with the biodynamics. If you're looking for something that doesn't fold, the biodynamics. So, oh boy, now I lost it. The VO space. So if it's not a mildly treated room such as a bedroom. So if you're just like hanging moving blankets in your bedroom, you're still going to get probably too much reverb for like pro voiceover work. If you're just if it's just like for your YouTube channel or for your streaming, you're just trying to not have it be too reverby, then you could probably get away with a bedroom. But I think if you're going to try and get into professional voiceover work, you need to really control as much of your environment as humanly possible. Thus, we have booths. So a more heavily treated booth, even if it's only three-sided, you may have a better sound than trying to treat a larger space with less material. That may still be too reverby. That's my guess. How do I deal with vocal fatigue? Long periods of talking, etc. I take a break. My voice does wear out. You can probably hear it. I probably sound more hoarse than when we started. My voice does wear out. I do try and do vocal exercises. Just like go search anywhere for like singing exercises, lip trills, and things like that. There are certain words that I have difficulty with that I do my own tongue twisters for. But normally when I start to feel my voice getting fatigued and I feel tiredness here, I just stop. Like if this was me doing voiceover for work, the way I sound now, I would have stopped and just gone and taken a rest and had some tea. This is throat coat tea that I keep with me, and gargle with salt water sometimes. And mostly it's just rest. I might not go again till tomorrow. The best microphone for streaming or gaming with no treated room. A microphone that you can get close to. So it's going to be something like probably a dynamic microphone, depending on your budget. There are people who like the Rode dynamic microphones because they're reasonably inexpensive, but a microphone that can get close. If you can't afford anything, then get something like even like a SM58. Get nice and close to it. It's going to be a fine sounding microphone. It's going to cover a lot of what you're doing. If you need to have that microphone away from you, then I would consider a shotgun microphone that you can get just out of frame, but as close to you as possible, even to the point where you might have it directly overhead pointed down at you, so it's only like 3 inches in front of you and pointed at your mouth. It's going to reject a lot of the off-axis noise. So a shotgun microphone might be a good bet. It's not something that often gets talked about with streaming or gaming because everybody wants that microphone in their frame. Which I don't, maybe that's a thing that you need to have. But really your budget, but a dynamic microphone would help, or a shotgun microphone. Those are the two things that I would probably recommend. I'm a simultaneous interpreter for Syrian refugees. I'm trying to build a DIY booth. I've seen your videos. Any advice for me on a budget? Any advice on a budget? So things like moving blankets, anything, couch cushions, pillows, anything that's absorbent is going to help until you can go through. The thing I would typically recommend, I generally recommend people steer clear of, is I think the egg crate foam does not work as well as it could for its price. What I use in here is stuff like you can get from Home Depot. This is mineral wool from Owens Corning, and that's it's like, I think this only cost, all of this insulation in here costs less than $200. It's like 3 or 4 bags of insulation at $55 a piece. I would much rather go with a mineral wool kind of insulation that I cover with fabric than trying to go with foam. So absorbent mass is going to be what serves you well. Mineral wool works great. Fiberglass, like Owens Corning 703, some dense fiberglass that's rigid helps, but that stuff all needs to get covered. It all needs to get covered with fabric is what I mean. Are there any mics that you would suggest for someone who's a high baritone or tenor? I don't have much bass, but can go up very high. I want something that enhances my range. So I, from a singing perspective, enhances your range. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but you have 2 choices, right? So the microphones that we've been through quite a bit of, there are some that are very present that have a boosted high range, and some that don't. The X3 is one of the microphones that does not have a high range. So depending on whether or not you want your upper range, the higher aspects of your voice, to be enhanced or reduced, you would pick a mic that's either presence boosted and bright or a microphone that's darker. The stellar ones that we've looked at here, the TechZone Audio product, the stellar ones, the X2 Vintage, the X3, they tend to be a little bit lower, more neutral on the high end, whereas other microphones like the TLM 103 may boost that up too much. So I think you have to really think about what it is that you're aiming for with the intention of the microphone, and really look at whether or not you want that presence boost to be up or whether or not you want it to be neutral for your voice. That's something that I would say. Let's see, Matthew Armistead. Thank you so very much for the super chat. Really incredibly generous. And Jay, who's Joe Mama, thank you so much. Joe Mama. Thank you so much for the super chat. How incredibly, incredibly generous. Thank you so very much. That is wonderful. Would I say the Blue Ember is a good mic? Yeah, the Blue Ember is a really good mic. $99? Yeah, I would recommend that at $99. Sure. Any suggestions on how to noise floor test on a mic without a treated room? How to do a noise floor test? Really, I mean, I think I'm not sure exactly what you're getting at there. Whether you're trying to establish what your noise floor is. Things that you can do is if you have something like Reaper, turn the mic on and adjust the gain to see what your noise floor is. And if you can try and just be quiet, plug the microphone in and adjust the gain until the meters, when it's quiet, are hovering at, say, -50 on your meters, on the meter and lower. And then figure out how close you need to get to the microphone in order to get a signal that's up at like -18. And that's kind of the way that I would try and do that, is first establish how much gain can you add to the microphone before the noise floor gets too high, given everything that's around, whether it's just your computer fans or the furnace or the street noise or whatever it is, and then see if you can still get close enough to the microphone to add additional signal to try and overcome that noise. Try and get your signal up to like -18 or something like that. I think that's what you're asking. That's what I would try and go for. What microphones are you using now? My microphones that have been my general go-tos is still my 416 right here. That I've been using that for a monster audiobook project that I'm working on. I use the OC18 quite a bit because there's a project that I started on that's a really long project, so I've used that one quite a bit. And I use my TLM 103 and I use my CAD E100S. I sort of go back and forth between a lot of those. How do I treat my floor? I treat my floor for comfort more than sound. The human ear, it's my understanding that the human ear is always accustomed to hearing sound bounce off the floor. So you don't really have to worry too much about that echo. I'd worry more about the ceiling, but I treat the floor for comfort. So right now I'm standing on carpet that's got a really thick carpet pad. It's actually 2 layers of carpet pad because I might be standing here for hours as I have today. I'm standing, so I want it to be comfortable. I don't really worry about the acoustics of it. Mardo, you're very kind. Thank you very much. I feel cool. I don't feel cool. I was thinking about the inherent noise in the mic, how to test the inherent noise in the mic. That would be, you would just have to, amass as much stuff around there as you could and walk away and see what the noise is on the microphone. Yeah, that's probably the way that you would do it. TLM versus MKH 416, who wins? If you could only have one, I'd choose the 416 because it's going to be more forgiving of the space. It's a mic that's easy to work. It's a very versatile microphone, but that would be just for voiceover. I think it's more versatile than what the TLM 103 can do. So if I had to make the choice where I'm going to spend my $1,000, I get the 416. The Caramel Duchess. Thank you very much. The good people on the No Sleep podcast, I think is what you're saying with NSP, inspired you to get into voice acting. Thanks for all you do. Yeah, it's really good. I'm a player on the No Sleep podcast that's been, I think we're just finished season 15. Holy cow, I've been doing that for a long time. Yeah. Do I recommend power conditioners? I get a ton of hiss with the 7B, a cloud lifter, and a decent interface. I'm not sure everything that you're asking there, Andrew, but I do have my power in this studio on a power conditioner, the one from Furman, just a basic one. The thing that you really should be careful of, that I've learned the hard way, is if you have multiple outlets in your room and your audio signal could be influenced by multiple pieces of equipment. So let's say your computer's plugged into one plug and your audio interface is in a different plug. You can get something called a ground loop between them that can introduce hum. Generally, not hiss, but hum, that can be problematic. So by using something like a power conditioner, I condense all of the things that are plugged in that can affect the audio chain. They're all plugged into one. So I do use a power conditioner, and I keep it in my rack and everything's plugged in there. I have 3 fish tanks in my room. How should I sound treat my room? I don't know. Is it for the bubblers and stuff? I don't know. You might have to turn the bubblers off if you're trying to record and you're worried about the sound of the bubblers. I don't know. I have literally no experience. I have no idea. Let's see. Should I still get something like an ID22 specifically for voice acting if I already have and use a Rodecaster Pro? I don't think so. If you're happy with the quality of the sound you're getting out of the Rodecaster Pro, you don't have to go to an ID22 preamps, or you have to be satisfied with the sound of the preamps. I like the ID22 because it's been extremely versatile for me. But if you're happy with the sound that you're getting and the way your mic plugs into it and you're happy with the sound, then no, you don't need to go to an ID22 or anything else. I know a lot of people who are still, they're using their like Zoom H5 and they're happy with it. They may upgrade for other reasons, but if you're happy with the sound, you don't need to change it. Do you think a first demo reel should be as clean as possible, or should I try my best to add music and effects? Douglas, if you don't know how to do the audio production of it for adding sound and things like that, you can actually make it sound worse by trying to add those effects in. So if you're just trying to just showcase your voice, I would say get your sound as good as it can sound and just go naked. Before I would hire somebody who's got some audio engineering skills, who knows how to do the right plugins to make your voice sit correctly within any of the music beds, so that otherwise you run the risk of doing it wrong. What kind of vocal exercises do I do before recording? Mostly just like singers warm-ups. I do, I modulate my voice. I get that. I do the lip trills and do those kind of exercises, trying to get my voice warmed up. I might do those for 10 or 15 minutes before. I have a a trick that my coach taught me a long time ago is you put a cork in your mouth and you try and enunciate some of the words by putting a cork in your mouth, and you can get yourself warmed up a little bit, and that can often make your pronunciation a little bit better. She taught me that a long time ago, so I keep a cork in the booth. That helps. Wow. The world according to Biggs. Wow, incredibly generous. Incredibly generous. Thank you so much for the super chat. Really, really, really wonderful. Really wonderful. Am I caught up here? Current post-processing. But my mic is an older blue soil. So that looks to be a comment amongst you guys. Have I done a video on preparing for a session, toothbrushing, gargling? If not, can you save... mouth noises to a minimum. Yeah. So a couple of things that you can do to keep mouth noises to a minimum. Yes, clearly, mouth hygiene really helps. So when I would go like into a studio, I'd brush my teeth beforehand. So it's my understanding. Here's my understanding of it. There's a couple of factors that lead to mouth noises. And it all sort of boils down to bubbles that are popping inside your mouth. And you probably hear it. I think I'm a little clicky right now because I've been talking for so long. So as you get saliva buildup, as you move your mouth, there's little tiny bubbles that pop, and the mic hears them really well. So getting that saliva out of your mouth, getting that saliva buildup out of your mouth can help. That can be exacerbated by fats, in particular things like dairy fats, my experience. So yogurt and milk and ice cream, those sort of fatty things can make it worse. However, I have found that oil can help. So if I'm desperate, I will often keep a little tiny bit of extra virgin olive oil in the booth and just wet the spoon with olive oil and swishy olive oil around my mouth, especially on my teeth, trying to coat my teeth and the inside of my lips with olive oil because I need to get through the session. I don't want my voice to change. So a little bit of olive oil. I'm not talking like big spoonfuls of it, just enough to just wet the inside of your mouth. And then you can often get like 10 or 15 minutes of no mouth noise. And you can keep doing that if you don't mind eating a little olive oil. That can really help. I haven't tried other oils, so you might be able to do it like vegetable oil, canola oil. I found extra virgin olive oil can really help. Some people, and I have tried this from time to time, some people do, like if you go to the pharmacy, they often will make lozenges that are specifically for dry mouth. That can they have some additives in it that get your mouth juicy. That I think can help. So if you're experiencing like that foamy saliva because you're dry, those can help. But otherwise, hydration is really important. Like I've always got tea. I've always got that. I've always got water, trying to stay as hydrated as I can. Because you've seen it in the booth, like I'm sweating. I've lost a lot of water during this time. So I can feel my mouth is dry. I'm clicky. My voice is hoarse. I'm tired. And I probably should have had 3 of these while I was in here during this whole time. But yeah, so hydrate. Start with hydration first thing in the morning. Hydration really makes a big deal. Because if you're in a long recording session, especially in a hot booth, you lose a lot. When I step out of here, it's going to be 15 degrees cooler and probably 40% less humid just on the other side. I've lost a lot of water. Yeah, I hope that helps. Okay, so let's see. Scrolling. Has the chat frozen for me? No, here we go. Holy cow. Jason, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it. Thank you. It's amazing to know how much goes into all. It's surprisingly complicated. It's a craft. It takes some preparation. So I appreciate it. How do I get most of my work? Agent, direct marketing, or other. I do it. I do it a bunch of different ways. So I'm just like many of you. I'm a working voice actor. I got to hustle. This is my career. This is my job. I got to hustle. I have an agent. They source a fair bit of business for me, but they source a fair bit of auditions for me. I still have to try and win it. And I have my win rate is my win rate. It's only so much that I can do. I do also participate, like it or not, I participate in the pay-to-play sites. So I have a voices.com membership because sometimes I need to go out and I need to audition. I have enjoyed a little bit of extra success, probably due to this YouTube channel, because there have been people that have said, I found you on YouTube. Could I hire you for some things? That's great. I have gotten work because of other work that I've done. So I've been a player on, like I said before, the No Sleep podcast. People say, I heard you on the No Sleep podcast. Can I hire you to do X? So sometimes as you get work that gets out there, you can get more work. But if you're not getting hired, you can also try and create something. I have a YouTube channel where I showcase what my voice can do. You can also do that same sort of thing. You can start to showcase what your voice can do. I'm always a big proponent of prove it. Can you do it? And if you have a voice, if you have a channel, an outlet where you're demonstrating what you can do, your facility with a voice, your way to interpret a script, could you create something on YouTube, on Instagram, on TikTok, or any of those things where you're showcasing what you can do that you can use as a reference for other people? So yeah, I do all those things. I audition, I have an agent, I go out and I try and hustle my own business, and I also have a platform that I've tried to develop over time that showcases what my voice can do, what my studio can do, because there have been a lot of times where I've gone to a person, I say, you want to hear my studio? I'm not going to BS with you. Go to my YouTube channel and listen to my studio. You'll hear exactly what it sounds like, so that can help. How do I overlay the show questions? You go to Aaron Parecki, Parecki, Aaron Parecki. He has a channel where I've learned so much about all this live streaming stuff. I've learned from Aaron, and he created a Chrome plugin that pays attention to the YouTube chat, and I can highlight the YouTube chat messages as they go by, and it pulls it up automatically. But Aaron Parecki's plugin is called Live Chat Overlay, and he has videos on how it gets set up. I just followed his instructions. Have I done a video about the Rodecaster Pro? I have not done a video about the Rodecaster Pro. I don't have one. Am I still a fan of the Blue Yeti? Probably not. No, I wouldn't say that I'm a fan of the Blue Yeti. I'm not really a fan much of the USB microphones. My experience with the Blue Yeti is it's fine, I guess. My experience is many of the Blue Yetis have a high-pitched whine in them. I think there are better USB microphones out there. Am I still a fan of the CAD mics? Absolutely. Have there any competitors that sound similar to the E100S? I think it's the Shure KSM32. It's been a while because I got that microphone on loan. I don't own it, but I think it's a Shure KK. Oh, can somebody help me out? Maybe put it in the chat. I did a video with a Shure microphone, and then I did one with the SE Electronics microphone. Both of them were on loan, so I can't remember them. If anybody happens to remember from any of my other videos, the SE Electronics microphone that I did sounded really good compared to the E100S. Very, very similar. I think you can still get the E100S around. They've discontinued it, but I think there's still a fair supply out there. But to my recollection, there was a Shure microphone. I think it was a KSM32. I'm having a hard time recalling. And there was an SE Electronics one that I liked, that both sounded very favorable compared to the E100S. Braden, I wanted to try and get into voiceover, but I'm not very confident in my voice. Any tips on building voice strength? I'm sure the strength of your voice is fine. If you need confidence in front of a microphone, then get in front of a microphone every freaking day and record something. Get to know that this thing is just an object that you work in front of. It's nothing to be intimidated by. Your voice is excellent. I haven't heard your voice, and your voice is excellent. Everybody's voice is excellent. There's a place for everybody's voice. You don't have to have a super smooth voice or a deep voice or any of that stuff. Your voice is yours. It's what makes you unique. You just have to get accustomed to be comfortable in front of this device. It can be intimidating. You got to get used to the way you sound. Listen to yourself over and over and over again. When I was getting started, and I still do, I record every single day. Do that. Get a book, record it. Get a magazine, record it. Open Wikipedia, record those articles. Get better at recording for yourself, and you'll learn to know what your voice sounds like. You'll learn to know what's best for you, and you'll learn to be more comfortable in front of this object if it's just a confidence thing. If your voice is just like this, I don't know what to do to help. I don't really know exercises to help you get better, to have a more confident voice. You got to learn to be in front of the microphone and talk, man. You own your voice. It's yours. Showcase what it can do. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully. Please make a video on this booth you are in and how to make it at home. I had that whole series go really badly, but there's some videos from a couple of years ago that show how I built this booth, and I lost like one SD card's worth of footage. So I started going through a step-by-step of how I did it all, and the very last SD card where I did like the fabric and stuff, but I show you all the framing. I show you how I did all the insulation. It's all in there. The last thing I didn't do was actually how I framed the door and how I put the fabric on. But there's a video. There's a video back there. I think it's called like 3 months of vlogs all in one or something like that. Is the Rode NT1 your favorite mic ever, Booth Junkie? If not, what is? My favorite mic ever? Which one of my children is my favorite? The couple that I go to all the time, the ones that have served me best over time, have been my CAD E100S, my Sennheiser MKH 416. If I only could buy one, I would probably buy the MKH 416. That, and then a Neumann microphone, probably. Oh, actually, even before the Neumann, I'd probably buy the Austrian Audio OC18 before a Neumann at this point, because I like the OC18. Holy cow. Given the work from home experience, have you considered developing some content targeted at corporate Skype and WebEx users? I could. I feel like there's a lot of that out there. I don't want to duplicate there are people who are doing it a whole lot better than I am. I can help set up, and I often with the consulting that I do, when people come to me, they find the channel and they go over to my website and they book time with me. I often do that on a one-on-one basis, but there's a lot of stuff that since the pandemic happened with setting up your home studio. So I haven't done that because I figured that's already been done. I just haven't. But thank you so much for the super chat. Really grateful for it. Damon, again, thank you for the super chat. Very extraordinarily generous. I appreciate it. How do I choose one mic over the other when starting a new project? I think about, what is the project for? How do I need to be in the booth? What am I going to be doing in the booth? So I said before, I'm working on this really huge audiobook project. It's nonfiction. I don't have to do a lot of acting. I have to do a lot of narrating. So in that case, the thing I want my copy in front of me, and I don't want any other distractions. So in that case, I have a shotgun microphone that's just out of my view. It doesn't get in my way. I'll never send a plosive into it. It doesn't get in my way. On the other hand, that's not great if I'm doing character work. So if I'm doing something for like the podcast that I'm on, where I might be moving around the microphone a lot, I'll probably choose a cardioid pattern microphone. I might choose my Neumann. I might choose one of the other microphones. And sometimes I'll just do the same part. I'll do a few lines with a couple of different microphones and see which one sounds best. Sometimes if a voice doesn't call for me to be like extra bassy or something like that, I won't use my 103 because that brings out a lot of my chest. So I won't necessarily use that. So I think about what it is that I'm going to need to do in front of the microphone and try and choose a microphone that's best for that. But really, if you just had like two microphones, a shotgun and a condenser microphone, total outlay of like $600, there would be like two different choices. And I like the shotguns because they're out of the way. You really get a view of your copy. Good for long form. I find them good for long form. Whereas the condenser, the cardioids, I can move around a bit more. I have a bit more freedom. You can work them a little bit more. So those are sorts of things that I look for. The eldest bro, thank you so much for the super chat, man. Super cool. Super cool. Have I ever found a practical use for an Omni mic in the booth? I haven't really. Maybe the only time I would consider using it, maybe is if I needed to get really close to the microphone and I needed to make sure there was never any proximity effect, because the omnidirectionals don't have any proximity effect in general. I might, but I don't really use, I haven't really found a need for an omnidirectional. If there were multiple people in the booth with me and I only had one mic and we needed to be around it, an Omni would be really good for that. So I could have like 3 people in here and we could all be talking into the mic, and Omni would be really good in that situation. But for me, on my own, I really haven't done that. If I manage a good inherent noise test of the AT2020, can I send it to you for comparison? Sure. My website will show you how to, boothjunkie.com. You can do things, you can send me files that way if you need to. I've only got one mic, the AT20, probably maybe the 2020 USB, use it for, or maybe it's the 2100 USB, use it for everything. If it's the mic you got, yeah, get yourself a mic, any mic, and record something amazing, right? If you've only got one mic, then learn how to use it and use it as best as you can use it, given your circumstances. Yeah. When listening to your own podcast, which mic do you think illustrates your own real sound more faithfully? I don't know. Most of the times, for the things that I do for like the No Sleep podcast, my voice ends up getting processed a lot, so I don't know that there's any particular thing that makes my voice sound good. Ooh, I'm getting hoarse. Gonna have to wrap this up because I'm losing my voice here. Michael, speak to AI and shady companies stealing your voice during auditions. Okay, that's a good question. So many of you may have seen, I put out a video a little while back where I took a particular voice gig to task. What you need to know is that if you've heard of deep fakes, there's also deep fakes for voice, where somebody can create a clone of your voice and then they just have to type whatever it is and it can sound like you. I'm not against that technology as a whole, but I don't want to make sure that you don't do that inadvertently. So the company that's probably most common for doing voice cloning is a company called Descript. I have nothing against the company. I'm a paying customer of theirs. But their scripts have a phrase at the beginning that essentially is you acknowledging that you're narrating this script to allow your voice to be cloned. Okay, that's fine. But what we found is that there have been places on like Upwork and Voices and maybe Voice Bunny, I forget, a couple of different places where people are trying to get you to read those sentences in a script so that they can clone your voice. And that's what you have to stay away from. I can't say it because I don't want anybody to clone my voice. But if you go to Descript and look at their website, they have their sample scripts online. And it's essentially the first 2 lines are an acknowledgement that you're reading this in order to have your voice cloned. Get familiar with those sentences so that you don't say them. But they're out there. And I also know that Descript is interested in licensing voices. So I think they have some legitimate ones that are on, I forget which platform, but Descript is actually looking for people to voluntarily have their voice cloned so they can include it as a model voice in their software. Know that that's what you're getting into. I wish they were paying a little bit more. I think they're only paying like $1,500 to essentially make a clone of your voice. I wish it was a little higher than that, but know that that's out there. What are your thoughts on using filters during or post-recording? I do all of my filters post-recording. I want the microphone to be as close to the original signal on disc as I can because I don't want the filters to accidentally mess something up to make me retake it. I can apply many of the effects after the fact. So I do almost everything. For all of my voice work that I do that is not live, I do directly into raw recording into the microphone, flat settings, no effects onto disc, and then I do whatever post-processing I need. The only time I might use effects as an insert on the way in is if that voice is going out live. So in this case, if I was not doing a mic comparison video, I probably would have added maybe a gate or something on the way in, or a limiter on the way in, compressor on the way in, so that it sounded nice and even And I would have done that in a live situation where everybody's hearing it as it's coming out of my mouth. Then I would do the processing. But otherwise, all the other processing I do after the fact. It's all in post. How do you know how I can get to try out a lot of different microphones to find one that fits my voice? Buying a large number of mics quickly gets expensive. Yeah, it does. I was just talking to somebody the other day about this. If you're in a city, I don't know that I have a ton of advice for everybody on this, but if you're in a city, many times the cities themselves will have places where you can rent microphones. That may be an option. Sometimes there'll be places that do like film production. You might be able to try, maybe they might have a couple of condensers. They might have some dynamics. They might have some shotguns that you'll be able to rent for a day. So rather than spending $1,000 on an MKH 416, you might be able to rent it for a day or two to see if you like the way it sounds. A lot of places won't mail the microphones. They won't ship them. But if you're proximate to a city, maybe you can drive to go get one. But there are places that will rent you microphones. So that's an opportunity. Otherwise, you might have to do the buy and return. But I'm not in favor of that. I have been using Clubhouse. I just got invited. I just started with Clubhouse yesterday. I was thinking about maybe trying to do some Clubhouse sessions like this where we could talk rather than just chat, where people could talk with me. I'd like to do that. But yeah, it is a great way. There's a lot of voices on there, a lot of people getting involved with that. But that's I'm curious. I wish the press that Clubhouse is getting about their privacy. I happen to be lucky that my iPhone had only 4 contacts in it, so they didn't go and slurp up all my contacts. But that is something that you need to know. They're going to inhale all of your contacts. Assume everything is being recorded. I don't harbor any illusion that that is a private social network. No matter how private you say you think your room is, assume every syllable you utter is recorded. Assume it. But otherwise, if you're willing to put your voice out there in the same way that I'm willing to put my voice out here, it's being recorded, it's being broadcast. Yeah, Clubhouse may be cool. That's Andrew. That's a good one. You might be able to go into a studio and have an A or an AT2020. Most of the studios that I've ever been in, the microphones that are in studio are like 800 and up is where they start. In streaming setup, what do you think about people using an outboard? Yeah. Thank you for the super chat, the eldest bro. Yes, I would use a DBX286, use a channel strip for moving that processing out of your computer and into a piece of hardware. So especially if your computer is already busy doing the streaming. I know things like OBS, you can insert some VSTs into it, but something like the DBX286, you're going to be able to get your sound just right, compressed just right, have the expander and gate set just right, and it's a great preamp. So I think something like that in a streaming setup is great. And there's lots of different, it's called a channel strip. So DBX286 is just one. There are vacuum tube ones. There's a whole bunch of different ones out there. But look for something called a channel strip that'll have the primary effects that you need for that sort of thing. Yeah, so Crazy Trains After the Show podcast, DJ Crazy Train. I use it on my radio show. It makes my mic sound awesome. It does. It's a great preamp. And the channel strip aspect of it, the compressor, it's got a great sounding compressor. The enhancer sounds cool as long as you don't overdo it. It's like salt. Just use just a little tiny bit. The gate really helps. The expander really helps. Yeah, it's cool. YouTube is much better than Clubhouse. You can use Discord for audio discussion. Yeah, absolutely. I think the difference here, YouTube is great for discovery, but it's a one-way. I'm talking to you. You get to chat with me. Discord, you could create a Discord server, but you lose some of the discoverability. Clubhouse, I think, has an idea. I just wish they were implementing it better. What do you think of the Earthworks SR314? I don't have a ton of experience with it. My experience with the Earthworks microphones in general is they are pristine and unforgiving and accurate to the point of being clinical. So the Earthworks microphones, they're not going to do your voice any favor. Your voice is going to sound like your voice. So if you want your voice to sound like your voice, the Earthworks microphones are great. They are very, very clinical sounding, accurate. They're not a lot of presence boost and stuff like that. I know Curtis Judd, he really likes his SR314. I think it's now become maybe the primary mic that you see on a lot of his videos, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Trying to think of ones I've seen recently. I think the 314 is the one he uses. They're great mics, but they don't they are really neutral. So they're going to sound like you. They're going to sound like you. Line in or USB preamp, which is better? I'm not sure what you're asking here. I don't know what you're asking here. Sorry. I use USB preamps for everything. All my preamp plays. Okay. Guys, I do have to say, my voice is running out. I can feel it getting hoarse. I can feel my chest getting tight. So if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to end the stream. I think I've answered just about everything. Gosh, if I've missed anything, do I have a suggestion on how to make a coiled wire a bit less tight? The coiled wire seems very tight. I don't know that there's much that you can do. Maybe a little heat. You might be able to stretch that cord out a little bit with heat. Go back and watch. If you go over to Alan Williams on Sound Speeds, he has a technique that he uses to remove kinks from cables. And I think it's really using a hairdryer. It's using heat to get it stretched. Whether or not that's going to permanently remove some of the tension from a coil, it might. But I think some gentle heat, like a hairdryer, you might be able to take some tension out of your cable. Reaper course. I do probably need to do an update for Reaper 6. I haven't gotten the time. I'm working on an audiobook project that's really eating so much of my time. Is it a good idea to use a shotgun mic for vocals? For singing, I wouldn't. For narrating, I use a shotgun mic all the time. Yeah. So, thank you, Never Who. Thank you for the stream. Yeah, I do think I need to call it I need to go get some vocal rest here because I have a lot of recording to do tomorrow. So I think I am going to call it quits for the stream. Can I just say thank you to everybody? It's so rewarding to talk with everybody. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy it. And thank you for helping me test the X3. I think I'm going to do more of those. I think that's really cool. So thank you all so much. And I hope you all enjoy what remains of your weekend. And I don't know, go get yourself a microphone, get out there and record something amazing. Guys, have a great weekend and we'll talk again soon. Take care.